Perfect. Okay, so we had been discussing liberalization, and within liberalization, one thing that I had discussed with you was industrial liberalization, and we had started with external sector liberalization, where you had written about removing import restrictions. So we will continue with that. After removing import restrictions, you write the second point in that. So this is external sector liberalization, and within that we talked one, import liberalization, and now I am talking two to you, that is export subsidy and export promotion. Good morning, all of you joining me online. Happy to see you too. Okay, let's see. When we say export subsidy and export promotion, I'll teach you this in more detail in another maybe 2-3 classes when we will reach export promotion by India after globalization. But just to give you a hint, what we started doing was, we started changing the structure of the economy. Till 1991, we used to be more an import substituting economy, and post 91, we started becoming more an export promoting economy. An economic system which was now more focused on increasing its exports than restricting its imports. And remember, that is a better way to be self-reliant. Self-reliant countries don't produce everything themselves. Self-reliant countries make sure that if they are importing things from others, they are equally important in exporting things to them, so that it doesn't arise as a situation, that they are dependent but they are not supplying anything to others. So India started changing track in that sense. India said, okay, we would also like to be an important part of global value chain. Just giving you one example. In 1991, India had 0.5% of total global export share. Today we are touching almost 2% of global total export share. Now that's not huge, without doubt, but that's something which can be considered as a good improvement compared to 1991. Also, to give you some absolute numbers, in 1991 we were exporting around $6 billion of commodities and negligible services. We were not exporting much services. So total exports of India in 1991 used to be $6 billion. Today, we are exporting around $450 billion worth of goods and $325 billion worth of services. So today our export is $775 billion. Now that's a huge jump compared to where we were in 1991. So that is because of the policies we used. Now I'm just making you write the policies right now. I will be explaining these policies to you when I'm discussing export promotion by India. We will be going into that. So you bring into this, you write, India introduced export promotion policies by simplifying rules and procedures, for exporters, simplifying rules and procedures for exporters, introducing export subsidies to assure that cost of export is reduced cost of export is reduced and rebating tax for the exporters, REBATING. Rebating the tax means you collect the tax and then give it back to them. All right, rebating tax for the exporters, which allowed them to reduce their cost of doing business. To reduce their cost of doing business. As I said, we will be going into details of it, but right now you just keep that much. Third point, then you write within this, the third point, you write India shifted from fixed exchange rate system. India shifted from fixed exchange rate system to floating exchange rate system. From fixed exchange rate system to floating exchange rate system between 1991 to 1994. Okay, I hope you have met Reddy sir and seen things on exchange rate. Has he done that with you? Okay, I'll tell you then. So there are two types of exchange rate that you would see. One is what we call, so whenever we use this term exchange rate, you know, it is value of one currency in terms of another currency. You know, that is what you call exchange rate. That what is the value of one currency in terms of another currency. Now, Reddy sir will take you into details of it, but for our functional knowledge, I'm telling you a few things. Like when you see rupee is 81 to a dollar. Now this is exchange rate. That how many rupee do you need for $1, or how many dollars do you need for 1 rupee. All right, that is exchange rate. This exchange rate can be fixed by the central bank of the country, and they will fix it on their own volition. जो central bank को लगेगा सही exchange rate है, वो fix करेंगे उसे कहते हैं fixed exchange rate. तो जब भी कोई हमें बोलता है that a country has fixed exchange rate system, this used to be very popular between 1945 and 1972 globally. That this fixed exchange rate system would operate. Now in this fixed exchange rate system, central bank determines the exchange rate. All right, that is in a fixed exchange rate system. That central bank determines the exchange rate. Exchange rate won't be determined by the market. Exchange rate will be determined by central bank. The central bank decides whether the currency should have 60 rupees value, 40 rupees, 30 rupees, and so on. Effectively, then the government is calling the shots there. The government will decide how much should be the exchange rate. Of course, it is expected that the central bank will look up to the market and see how much of their currency is demanded and how much of foreign currency is supplied, and based on that they will fix the exchange rate. But there is no role for the market here. The role is of the central bank. The central bank will decide the exchange rate. After 1970s, this system started changing as the country started realizing that central bank was not always perfect or not even good enough in fixing this exchange rate. So we introduced another system called floating exchange rate. ये global level की बात कर रहा हूं मैं. So globally this floating exchange rate system was introduced sometimes around 1972. And this floating exchange rate system is when exchange rate is determined by market. when exchange rate is determined by market. Now, how does market determine exchange rate? Through the forces of demand and supply. How does that happen? Think like this. If I am selling more commodities abroad, then I am exporting more. And if I am exporting more, foreigners will bring their dollars into my country. It will increase supply of dollar and it will increase demand for rupee. अगर लोग मुझसे ज़्यादा चीज़ें खरीदेंगे तो मेरे करेंसी की डिमांड बढ़ जाएगी और फॉरेन करेंसी की सप्लाई बढ़ जाएगी. अगर ऐसा होता है, if my currency demand becomes more and foreign currency supply becomes more, then my currency value will appreciate. I hope I am reaching you on that. And similarly, if I am importing more and I am exporting less, say for a second, if I am importing more commodities, then in that case I will demand more dollar and I will supply more rupee, and that will reduce the value of my currency. One example is that I am giving you. There can be more. For example, it is also possible if foreigners are investing more in my country. Again, if they are investing more in my country, demand for my currency will rise. For example, if foreigners come and buy shares on Bombay Stock Exchange, if foreigners come and buy a factory in India, you understand that? Then demand for Indian currency will rise. Similarly, if Indians go and buy factories abroad, if Indians go and buy shares abroad, then supply of domestic currency will rise, demand for foreign currency will fall. So whatever increases the demand for foreign currency will result in depreciating my currency and appreciating foreign currency. Do I reach you on this? I repeat myself again. Whatever increases the demand for foreign currency, like if I am importing more from abroad or if I am investing more abroad, will result in appreciation of foreign currency and depreciation of my currency. And whatever increases demand for my currency, for example, if I am selling more abroad, exports, or if foreigners are investing more in my country, will result in appreciation of my currency. I hope this basic thing is understood. Don't worry, you will be taken into more details by Reddy sir, but I just wanted the concept to be there for you. Now, India had a fixed exchange rate system where the central bank determined the exchange rate till as late as 1992. We did not have a floating exchange rate system. अच्छा, एक बात और यही समझ लो, in real world, life is between fixed and floating. It's neither pure fixed exchange rate nor pure floating. The market determines the exchange rate, but the central bank keeps intervening from time to time. That is what happens in the real world. So that is why we say it is managed floating or dirty floating in this floating exchange rate. That we say that it's not a clean floating system. There is managed floating where effectively we are having a floating exchange rate, but the central bank will intervene, all right, from time to time. So in real world, that is what happens. But as I told you, Reddy sir will take you into details of these things. I wanted you to just understand that India was following, till March 1992, there was a fixed exchange rate system in India. और हमने अपनी करेंसी को फिक्स किया हुआ था at 12 rupees a dollar. All right. ये overvalued exchange rate था, without any doubt. But we had fixed our currency at 12 rupees a dollar. This was 1991. That our currency had been fixed at something like 12 rupees a dollar. Even though the realistic value was much lesser, but we have always been obsessed with our currency value. हमें लगता है हमारे currency की value high है तो दुनिया में सब कुछ ठीक है. जबकि वो reality नहीं होती. But we had fixed it like that. This was the fixed exchange rate. The market was actually giving, क्योंकि बाकी के देश market exchange rate पे shift हो गए थे, so market was giving something like 30 rupees to a dollar. All right. तो हमारे currency की realistic value ये थी, but we had kept it here, suggesting that we are still doing better and our exchange rate is high and so on. Anyways, now as we were liberalizing, it was suggested that India should shift to market exchange rate so that our currency takes a realistic value and everybody should get the right impression about the true value of our currency. Initially, the government resisted it, especially the Prime Minister. He was not in the favor of doing it because he said it will create huge fluctuation if you go from 12 to 30 straight away. So a method was found. In March 1992, we introduced a system called liberalized exchange rate management system, LERMS. Liberalized exchange rate management system. This is what we introduced in March 1992. Now, what were we doing in this LERMS? What we were doing was, we were saying any foreign exchange brought into India on current account will be converted into rupee by कि आप कोई भी फॉरेन एक्सचेंज अगर देश में लाए करंट अकाउंट पे, ये बहुत साल पुरानी बात हो गई जब मैं आपसे पिछली बार मिला था, तो जब मैं आपको रिफॉर्म्स पढ़ा रहा था, I had talked to you about current account deficit and we had discussed there that there is a balance of payment which records all transactions between the domestic country and the foreign country, and there is a current account in it which records all exports and imports and all remittances and all income earned from abroad, and there is a capital account which records all investments and borrowings. So all money that you bring on current account. All right, that is what we are discussing here, that any foreign exchange brought into India on current account will be converted into rupee by converting 40% amount at market exchange rate and converting 60% amount at fixed exchange rate. Alright, that was the rule that was made. जो पैसा आप भारत में लाएंगे करंट अकाउंट पे एक्सपोर्ट के थ्रू या फिर रेमिटेंसेस के थ्रू या बाहर से इनकम अर्न करके लाएंगे, तो जो भी पैसा आप भारत में लाएंगे उसका 40% अमाउंट पे आपको मार्केट रेट मिलेगा और 60% अमाउंट पे फिक्स्ड एक्सचेंज रेट मिलेगा. Just repeating myself in English, that whatever money you bring into India on current account, 40% will be converted at market exchange rate, 60% will be converted at fixed exchange rate. Just to make it more obvious, it is like this, that suppose if you bring $100 to India, then out of this $40 will be converted at market exchange rate, 30 rupees to a dollar, and $60 will be converted at fixed exchange rate, 12 rupees to a dollar. And so the money that you will get will be something like 19-20 rupees for the money that you brought in. All right. If earlier the government was paying only 12 rupees a dollar, so on $100 you got 1200 rupees. If it was entirely market, the government would have paid 30 rupees a dollar, so $100 would have given you 3000 rupees. Now the government was saying, I'm giving you something in between. All right, so I'm giving you 40 rupees a dollar and 60 rupees a dollar, 12 rupees a dollar and 30 rupees a dollar, depending on whether it is or what percentage is market and what percentage is fixed. ये एक transition का phase था. All right, this was a phase of transition. The government was trying to see how much fluctuation gets created if you shift this way. But this was about that, okay, we are neither completely fixed nor completely floating. We will gradually shift from one to another. Do I believe I'm clear to you on that? This experiment worked wonderfully well for India because within a couple of years it was realized that it was transitioning very smoothly and there was no fluctuations in the foreign exchange market. So by March 1994, India allowed all foreign exchange on current account to be converted into rupee terms at market exchange rate. So that meant India adopted floating exchange rate. By March 1994, India allowed all foreign exchange on current account, कोई भी पैसा जो आप current account पे ला रहे हैं, to be converted into rupee terms at market exchange rate. Whatever money you bring to India, we convert it into rupee terms at market exchange rate, and therefore it was shifting to the floating exchange rate system. All right. So from fixed to floating with a transition of liberalized exchange rate management system over 2 years. 1992 March, it was fixed exchange rate. Then we introduced liberalized exchange rate management system. We lived with that for 2 years, and over 2 years we transitioned to floating exchange rate. I hope the mechanism is clear to all. Now what did that do? It made sure that investors could invest in India more easily. People trusted Indian currency much more, and that resulted in easier exports, easier imports, more inflow of investment, giving India again a growth, with this liberalized system that we were doing. इसमें एक और फायदा था, हम import duty बढ़ा रहे थे इंडिया में, कम कर रहे थे. So we knew that we are reducing import duty and we are reducing protection in India for our producers. So what is the indirect way of giving that protection back? Shift from fixed exchange rate to floating exchange rate, knowing very well that the currency will depreciate. As currency depreciates, my imports become costlier and my exports become cheaper. All right, going for that. That is what we were also going for. We knew that this will happen, and therefore we knew that let's go for it and let's make sure that our exports become cheaper. Think of it. If my currency is 12 rupees a dollar, then something which is for 30 rupees will be $2.5. अगर कोई चीज़ 12 रुपए पर डॉलर है, अगर मेरी करेंसी, कोई चीज़ मेरे यहाँ 30 रुपए की बिकती है, it will be $2.5. All right, for the foreigner. As I let my currency depreciate to 30 rupees a dollar, the same commodity will be available to foreigner for $1. You understand that? That is what means when we say that as my currency depreciates, my exports become cheaper. And of course, my imports become costlier. As my imports become costlier, it allows, or it kind of forces people to shift production into India, even if I'm a foreign producer. For example, if I'm, say, Hyundai, or I am a Toyota, and I was producing my inputs abroad, say in Japan or in Korea respectively, and then I was importing my components to India, and I was producing from India, I'm assembling it in India. Now as import prices become more, I start producing even my components in India, and that means that gradually my components become, India becomes a larger producer of my components, and entire manufacturing base shifts to India. You understand that? So all this was happening in 1990s. To a great extent. So that is a better way to protect. अगर हमें protect भी करना है, कुछ लोग कहते हैं नहीं, import duty अगर तुम बढ़ा देते हो तो oil बहुत important import है जो costly हो जाएगा. होना ही चाहिए, तभी हम लोग पंखे चला के कपड़ा सुखाना बंद करेंगे. एक तरफ हम बोलते हैं ऑयल इंपोर्ट करना पड़ता है, इट्स सच अ पेन एंड इंडिया हैज सच अ हाई इंपोर्ट बिल टू पे. ऑन द अदर हैंड वी आर मिस यूजिंग आवर एलपीजी सिलेंडर्स, उस पर पानी गर्म करते हैं. वी आर मिस यूजिंग आवर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, कपड़े सुखाते हैं. तो वो कम हो जाएगा जैसे ही बिल बढ़ेंगे. आप गांव जाइए, मैं जाता हूं अपने, वहां बहुत आम बात होगी, आप भी देखते होंगे, रात भर लोग पंप सेट चला के छोड़ देते हैं, पानी बहता जा रहा है, कोई फर्क नहीं. क्यों? फ्री बिजली मिल रही है. आप फ्री बिजली देना बंद करिए, लोग ज्यादा कॉन्शियस हो जाएंगे. रात के 2 बजे उठ के जाएंगे बंद करने की, अब खेत में पानी भर गया होगा, अब बंद करो, काम खत्म हुआ. तो अगर हम इनडिसिप्लिन रखना चाहते हैं अपने लोगों को तो अलग बात है, फिर तो उसका एक नतीजा होता है, उसको क्राइसिस बोलते हैं. We can keep people indisciplined over 20 years, 15 years. After 15, 20 years, we will have a crisis. All right. Remember, whenever countries have tried that we will uplift people by giving them subsidy, those countries have gone down like anything. The history teaches us that. Unfortunately, many people are not educated enough to know that history. That is the challenge part, But history has always taught us that whenever countries have tried, that we will make sure that we bring back prosperity to people. और क्योंकि वो अपील बहुत करता है ह्यूमंस को. अगर चैरिटी इतनी ही अच्छी चीज होती तो आपके पेरेंट्स आपको धक्का नहीं मार रहे होते लाइफ में सेटल करने के लिए. They would have kept doing that charity for you all your life. They would have told you, don't worry, there's enough in the family. You don't have to earn for anything for yourself. Live happily, spend your life. We have earned enough. You die after that, doesn't matter. They don't tell you that. There is sufficient in the family, still that they keep needling us, no? सब कुछ रहता है. मुझे याद है मैं अपने मदर को बहुत डराता था. मुझे बोलते थे पढ़ोगे नहीं तो क्या होगा. मैं बोलता था अरे पापा का 3 मंजिल का घर है, 2 किराए पे लगा दूंगा, 1 पे खुद रहूंगा. She used to be very worried this fellow has these plans. But point is that what I'm trying to drive home is that they would keep pushing us. You are pushed, I was pushed, I pushed my children at times that you should be settled, because working, being disciplined is not about the money that you earn alone. Money can carry you through. It's also about how responsible you become, how much you start understanding the role of resources, and how careful you become in using them rather than wasting them. So it all sounds very good कि नहीं मैं गरीब लोगों को फ्री में दे दूंगा. अब दे दीजिए फ्री में. हम फ्री में खाना देते हैं ना, वो एक हाथ से जाते हैं खरीद के उठा के लाते हैं FCI गोडाउन से, और दूसरे हाथ से गांव में जाके दुकान पे बेच देते हैं. So much for free food, और हम आर्टिकल्स लिखते हैं अखबार में 80 crore people are getting free food in India, which means India is so poor. No, India is not that poor that 80 crore people need free food. They don't need it. We are जबरदस्ती हम दे रहे हैं वो. We are deliberately giving it with people not needing that free food. Ideally, India doesn't have more than 20-25 crore people who would need that free food. Rest should pay some amount. But this is political populism. Gets you vote, number one, but more importantly gets you the impression among the rich who don't know the economy that something good is happening. आप कहेंगे नहीं सर पढ़े लिखे लोग ऐसा कैसे सोचते हैं. आप सोच के देखिए. यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर UPSC for some time now, I think around 5-6 months. Yeah, you have known so much about India now, no? But 6 months back also you thought you were graduates. Think about it. 6-8 महीने पहले भी तो तुम्हें लगता ही था ना मैं पढ़ा लिखा हूँ, ग्रेजुएट हूँ. जब तुम UPSC की तैयारी करते हो तो पता चलता है इतनी चीजें और इस दुनिया में. ऐसे होती है पॉलिसी मेरे देश की. अब आप सोचिए जिसने तैयारी नहीं की, जो कि मेजॉरिटी लोग हैं हमारे देश के, उनको तो पता भी नहीं क्या होता है. सरकार के खिलाफ तो बोल रहा हूँ. ये सब तो हो सकता है. But again, jokes apart, what I am trying to teach you right here is that it's always about making the system more capable, training people to be more disciplined. That is what gets you on the right track and lets you develop and grow, rather than thinking that let's do charity and let's give money and that will carry people through. It doesn't. It keeps people dependent, and we treat them as beggars rather than agents in the economy. So 90s were a nicer time, और वो nicer time होना normal है. देखिए जब crisis आती है तो हमारी आंखें ज्यादा खुलती हैं. It's like having a bad result. The next 7 days you will see the fellow is studying very hard. ट्राइंग टू प्रूव दैट नहीं, वो खराब रिजल्ट एक एनोमली था। मैं फिर रिजल्ट हुए जब 6 महीने हो जाते हैं, वी आर बैक टू द सिचुएशन। इंडिया कुछ ऐसा ही बिहेव कर रहा है। We had a bad result 1991. We behaved pretty well next 10-15 years. Then the bad result was back in the back burner and we did well. We are still doing okay. But now it's 30 years and many of the people in politics at least, maybe they don't know this history very well of 91 crisis, or they don't take it seriously. So we are gradually but assuredly sometimes going back to those old paths. यहां ज्यादा खर्चा कर दो, ये ज्यादा बना दो। अब सोच के देखिए, अभी कुछ दिन पहले ये समाचार में था, आई एम श्योर यू वुड हैव रेड इट इन द न्यूज, दैट अ ब्रिज वाज blasted in Bihar. Now the chief minister said that we will do an inquiry as to why the bridge collapsed. Then by 9 o'clock in the morning, chief minister said this. 2:30 in the afternoon, the deputy chief minister said that it was a planned collapse. The bridge had developed problems, even though it was a newly constructed bridge. Now that bridge was worth 1700 crore rupees. And not a single engineer loses job. 1700 crore rupees, and it goes down the water quite literally, you know, and nobody loses the job, and people say, oh, it was just faulty construction due to which we had to blast it. Fair enough, but how did that construction happen? So somebody got to take that responsibility. क्योंकि 1, 2, 4, 5 रुपए की बात नहीं थी, 4000 की भी बात नहीं थी, 1700 करोड़ रुपए की बात थी। किसी की नौकरी नहीं गई, सस्पेंशन तक नहीं हुआ। तो जब हम ऐसे बदतमीजी से बिहेव करते हैं अपने पैसे के साथ, तो रिसोर्स की कमी हमेशा रहेगी। Then we can keep saying I have less resources, what to do, I don't have money to work on things and so on. एक बुलेट ट्रेन प्रोजेक्ट शुरू किया हमने एक जमाने में, और बोले कि इंडिया में बुलेट ट्रेन आएगी। By 2022 the bullet train will be running in India. This is almost approaching 2024. The project is all 60% complete, and sometimes simply because the state government changes its mood. I mean, you can't be allowed to do that. Everybody should come together, decide things, and if the government has given a guarantee that okay, we will go about on doing things, midway you cannot say I'm not doing it after having spent around 50,000 crore rupees in it. 50,000 करोड़ रुपए लग गए हैं। 1,08,000 करोड़ रुपए का वो प्रोजेक्ट है। करीब 70,000 करोड़ रुपए खर्च हो चुके हैं और अभी तक ट्रेन फंक्शनल नहीं है। 70,000 करोड़ रुपए की बात करते हैं हम। हमारे यहाँ हम लोग चंद्रयान भेजते हैं तो अखबार में आर्टिकल पढ़ने लगा मैं, जो मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगता है कि मैं तब रियलाइज करता हूँ कि माँ सरस्वती सबके साथ तो नहीं होती। But you know, we send a Chandrayaan and then we read articles in newspaper that India has so much poverty and we are sending Chandrayaan. Fair enough, but Chandrayaan is 550 crore. You close down scooters, India we save 1100 crore. 2 Chandrayaans. You know, why poverty? पॉवर्टी का सवाल तभी क्यों जब चंद्रयान करके कुछ अचीवमेंट किया देश ने। पॉवर्टी का सवाल तो स्कूटर्स इंडिया पे भी उठना चाहिए कि ये क्यों चला रहे हैं जब इतनी गरीबी है, तो उससे किसकी गरीबी दूर हो रही है? वो कंपनी जो स्कूटर भी नहीं बनाती। So unless we don't debate correctly, my point was just that you know, this was a synchronized policy making. What was the synchronization? I will reduce import duty so that I make sure inputs are available at a cheaper rate. I will make sure that protectionism is practiced less. I will promote my exports and I will let my currency depreciate so that in case somebody needs better protection in India, they get that protection through exchange rate mechanism rather than an import duty increase mechanism. That was the thing that we go by. All right. I again repeat, I'm trying to underline this fact. Countries which remain indisciplined are the countries which suffer quite a bit. Applies on humans too. All right. Always keep that in mind. You know, country, societies, families, individuals, ये सब पे अप्लाई करता है। जो भी गैर जिम्मेदारी दिखाएंगे उनके साथ गड़बड़ होने वाली है। एक एग्जाम्पल ले लो, अब आपकी क्लास है आज सुबह, ऐसे ही सुबह की क्लास तकलीफदेह हो जाती है कभी कभी सबके लिए, लेकिन अगर आप कल रात को 1 बजे तक जगे हुए थे या 2 बजे तक जगे हुए थे तो आप क्लास में पक्का सोते हुए पाए जाएंगे, और इसके लिए दुनिया में कोई और जिम्मेदार नहीं हो सकता, वो आप ही हैं। फिर मैं बहुत बातें बोल रहा हूं, जैसे अभी बोल रहा हूं, उनमें से कुछ बात लिखने की नौबत आ सकती है एग्जाम हॉल में, तुम्हारे लिए हुई नहीं वो बात। तुमको कह रहे सब बोलते हैं विभास सर जो पढ़ाते हैं वो आ जाता है, कब पढ़ाया ये सर? तब पढ़ाया जब आप थोड़ी सी निद्रा देवी की गोद में थे। तो ये जानने की जरूरत है that you know that's sheer discipline. No, nobody loves sleeping early at your age, and you have so many nice things to do otherwise, but that's discipline. Got to push through and get it done. Can't be compromised. That is the only thing I'm trying to teach you, that end of the day everybody got to sacrifice something to get what they are getting. कंट्रीज पे भी अप्लाई होता है, तो पॉलिसी सही बनाए। ये जितने भी लाडली बहना योजना जैसी स्कीम्स हैं ये ना चलाएं। इससे अच्छा लाडली बहनाओं को केपेबल बनाए, नौकरी दे। लाडली बहनाओं के लाडली जीजा जितने हैं उनको समझाया जाए कि पत्नी को नौकरी करने जाने दो, इससे उनकी सक्षमता बढ़ती है, तो फिर आपकी सारी स्कीम्स सही होंगी। देन द वुमेन आर पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन द लेबर फोर्स, इकोनॉमी इज अर्निंग बेटर एंड वी आर ग्रोइंग गुड। But if you are saying that no, I'll give you 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees, keep this, and I'll give it to all, and that will uplift you from that will give you an independence to spend money. Well, that independence many people have depending on somebody else's money. This money is also somebody else's. So just be careful on that. I'm trying to introduce few things in your mind. I will be needing them in another 40 minutes or so. So just putting them in your mind. Okay. Now, there is one more thing we did for external sector liberalization. You write that as the fourth point. This is the fourth point on external sector liberalization. And you write, government introduced Foreign Exchange Management Act, Foreign Exchange Management Act to replace, and we will keep calling it FEMA, F-E-M-A, Foreign Exchange Management Act, FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act, to replace Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, and we will keep calling it FERA, in 1999. So FERA had been introduced in 1973, and FERA was restrictive, so we replace it by FEMA by 1999. All right, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, replacing it by Foreign Exchange Management Act in 1999. Now, I'm making you write the differences between FEMA and FERA, or in a sense, I'm making you write how FEMA was an improvement over FERA. All right, that what law changes did we bring in FEMA, which made it like an improvement over FERA. All right, so you write within that, FEMA is an improvement over FERA. FEMA is an improvement over FERA due to following reasons. Due to following reasons, and you write 1, under FERA, comma, foreign firms were not allowed to hold more than more than 40% shares in Indian firms while under FEMA they are allowed to hold up to 100% shares and set up companies in India. Up to 100% shares and set up companies in India. Before FEMA, it was a lot of restriction if companies had to set themselves up in India. In fact, if you were to hold above 40% share in an Indian company, too many permissions were needed and many times not granted. All right, many sectors were completely closed for foreign investment. We started liberalizing it after 1991, and by 1999, when we passed FEMA, that was the time when we said FDI is allowed in India, and allowed with more freedom, and that was transitioning. What is the benefit of that? The benefit is when you allow foreigners to set up companies in India more freely, then that will mean they are using or they are putting in more resources and they are creating more employment. Like if you look at the role of multinationals today in India, I'm saying, when it comes to employment generation or when it comes to production units in India, that's much more as compared to what it used to be in the past. All right. Also, sometimes again, a nostalgic view is created. What is that nostalgic view? Oh, but pre-1991 we used to be self-dependent. Now we are depending on them to produce. We were the largest beggars. Beggars are not self-dependent. हम दुनिया भर से भीख मांगते थे. वो self-dependency नहीं हो सकती. It's just being nostalgic. Secondly, the commodities were not available. That is the more important point. You go for purchasing a car, it won't be available. You go to purchase a motorcycle, it won't be available. As small a thing as maybe a mixer grinder won't be available so easily. As small a thing as maybe milk will not be available so freely. I'm not saying all of this is because of FDI. I'm only saying that as economy becomes more efficient, to which foreign investment also contributes, we learn how to produce better and supply more. We had not learned that earlier. Pre-1991, and this you should listen very carefully to, क्योंकि काफी nostalgia में लोग history बदलने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. Pre-1991, the upper middle class of India used to live a life that the lower middle class of India lives today. That is what you should. अच्छा, मैं आपको example दे देता हूँ. आपके parents मेरे ही generation से हैं, तो आपको ये कहानियाँ खूब सुनने को मिलती होंगी. जैसे, अरे तुम्हारे life में तो कोई दिक्कत की वैसे बात नहीं है. हम लोगों ने तो ऐसा समय देखा जहां साइकिल भी नहीं मिलती थी. तुम लोग तो मोटरसाइकिल डिमांड कर सकते हो. ऑलराइट, ठीक है. सेकेंडली, गाड़ी होना तो बहुत बड़ी बात थी. हम तो गाड़ी देखते ही नहीं थे अपने बचपन में. अच्छा, टेलीफोन तो होता ही नहीं था घर में, किसी और के घर जाकर टेलीफोन सुनना पड़ता था. टेलीफोन्स फॉर लग्जरी इन दोज डेज. अच्छा, color television won't be available. We grew up on black and white television with one channel kind of. You have heard all these stories? But grandfather रिक्शा नहीं चलाते थे ना, well settled person थे. तो भी फादर मदर ये स्टोरी क्यों सुनाते हैं? क्योंकि अपर मिडिल क्लास इंडिया ऐसे ही जीता था उस वक्त. चीजें ही अवेलेबल नहीं थी. Things were not available. The first time a mosquito repellent came to India, ये जो Good Night and All Out ये आप देखते हैं, was 1993. India had not seen a mosquito repellent before that. We were all those mosquito net generation. कि अपना मच्छरदानी लगाए, उसके अंदर सोए, रात को उठ के आधा बार कवाली खेल लिए कि मच्छर घुस गया, फिर सो गए. We would be that. We didn't know that there is something called a mosquito repellent which can remove things. Air cooler meant you had arrived. अगर आपके घर में एयर कूलर है, मतलब आप अमीर आदमी हो गए हो, थोड़ा पंखा के ऊपर जा चुके हो. अब आप सोचिए आज की दुनिया, 2022, 23 इंडिया, 24 इंडिया. You will see flat screens in slums. You will see air coolers in slums. You go to your village also, forget cities, you go to your village and you will see the lower middle class of village now riding bikes. मेरे जो गाड़ी चलाते हैं वो एक बड़ी फैंसी बाइक पे आते हैं, वो ऐसी सीट है, फिर सीट ऐसे उड़ जाती है, तो मैं उनसे मजाक भी करता हूँ कि तुम्हारे पीछे जो बैठते होंगे वो तो तुम्हारे साथ विक्रम बेताल का खेल खेलते हैं कि वो बैठ गए तो उड़ रहे पीछे, तुम चला रहे हो, so I keep joking with him at times, but imagine that person is the lower middle class of India and the person is having a bike which is fancy in nature. ये इंडिया की लाइफस्टाइल चेंज है, हम नहीं एक्नॉलेज करना चाहते, वो एक अलग बात है. We can live with our sadness and I don't stop people from doing that, but if we want to see how India has changed, this is for us to see that this is how India has changed, that things which were available for very few people earlier is available for many, and things which were not available for a class of people earlier are now available for them. So unless we don't, जैसे मैंने कहा, एक है नॉस्टैल्जिया, अरे नहीं उस समय में सस्ता होता था, ठीक है, फिर अगला सवाल है इनकम कितनी होती थी, सस्ता तो होता था, पैसे कितने कमाते थे भाई ये भी बताओ, क्योंकि उसी सस्ते में तो हालत खराब रहती थी. So this is the point. नॉस्टैल्जिया अगर आपको लग रहा है सर क्या मतलब हुआ इसका, जैसे आप बात करते हैं कभी कभी, आप बोलते हैं कभी कभी बचपन के दिन, यार बच्चों की लाइफ बड़ी अच्छी है, जो मर्जी करते हैं, दैट इज नॉस्टैल्जिया. अच्छी क्या है, बेचारा पानी पीने जा रहा है, कोई बीच में उठा ले तो और बेटा किधर जा भेज दिया, इसमें क्या अच्छी लाइफ है उसकी. नो इंडिपेंडेंस ऑन योर ओन बॉडी, एनीबडी कैन वायलेट इट एनी पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. किसी ने उठा लिया, कोई पकड़ के घुमा दिया, आज मुझे सोने का मन नहीं कर रहा है, अरे उठ जा अभी पढ़, आज मुझे पढ़ने का मन कर रहा है, अभी सो जा. अभी आप तो इंडिपेंडेंस में हो, नोबडी डायरेक्ट्स यू व्हाट टू डू, नोबडी स्लैप्स यू, नोबडी टेल्स यू आज कहीं जा घूमने जा रहे हो, जाना कोई उठा ले और बेटे फिर उतार दे. ऐसा तो नहीं हो रहा आपके साथ, लेकिन हम इस बात को नहीं रियलाइज करते. हमें लगता है नहीं क्या केयर फ्री दिन थे वो. केयर फ्री नहीं थे भाई, स्कूल जाने तक में डर लगता था कि टीचर ड्रेस के लिए डांटेंगे या शूज के लिए पॉलिश के लिए डांटेंगे. केयर फ्री तो फिर ये दिन हो गए आपके, ये डर तो नहीं है कि कोई मुझे डांटेगा या नहीं डांटेगा. और हमारी एज में लोग बात करते हैं आपके एज की, वो नॉस्टैल्जिया होता है. कॉलेज डेज वर द बेस्ट डेज ऑफ लाइफ. They are all great days. I'm not saying they are bad days. I'm saying but those days also had their own struggle. जैसे अभी तुम्हारे दिन चल रहे हैं, बहुत दिन होते होंगे जिस दिन नींद नहीं आती होगी सोच के कि मेरा करियर क्या बनेगा. हमारे भी गुजरे थे ऐसे, दोबारा थोड़ी जाना चाहूंगा मैं वहां, दिमाग खराब है मेरा. People say this, only if I could have gone back to those days. Why should I go back to those days, work hard all over again for 25 years to reach here? Who knows how much lucky I will get again? I don't want to go back to those days. I love those days. I had a wonderful time in my college days, but that doesn't mean these days are bad. This is good, that was good too. This also has its challenges, that had its challenges too. But that is my point I'm driving home, that nostalgia mein jab hum rehte hain, we remember all the nicer things of then and we don't remember the challenges of then, and we then compare the good things of then to challenges of today, and then we say oh look today is bad and that day was good. That is perpetual sadness. ऐसे लोग देखोगे ऐसे ही रहते हैं हमेशा, सर गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड मॉर्निंग उस तरह से नाराज रहेंगे. तो वो नाराजगी का कारण ही यही है, वो गलत सोच में फंसे हुए हैं. उनको लगा नहीं वो बड़ा अच्छा था, ये खराब है. गड़बड़ वहां भी थी, गड़बड़ यहाँ भी है. लेकिन ये देखना है ओवरऑल हैज माई लेवल अपलिफ्टेड और हैज माई लेवल गॉन डाउन. नाउ आई एम टॉकिंग अस इंडिया एज अ लेवल, एज अ नेशन. इफ माई लेवल हैज गॉन अप, then let's stop giving this wrong dialogue that poors have become poorer in India. Poors have not become poorer in India. Rich have become richer and poors have become richer. It is just that rich have become richer at a much faster pace, which makes us see inequality in our face. But poors are much better to do in today's India than what they were able to do 35 years back. Today's India can afford a Manrega. Today's India can afford a Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Today's India can afford something like a PM Swanidhi. 35 years back India could not afford it, is the word I am using. पैसे नहीं थे सरकार के पास ये सब करने को. So this is the point to keep in mind, that are we as a nation comparable to 80s? Now what were we doing in 80s and what are we doing today? Of course, again I repeat, no nation is perfect. We are not perfect. We are not doing heavily great. There are too many upliftments to take place still. But let's not undermine the things we have done in the past, and let's not undermine the contribution of the policies that have done that. अभी के इंडिया में धीरे धीरे वो बीमारी फिर घुस रही है. That I will work on X, I'll work on Y, I'll be self-dependent. Self-dependency happens when you have enough money to pay for your expenditure. That is being self-dependent. So India should try doing that. Earn enough money to pay for my expenditure. Of course, sir, but we are increasing our import duty a little bit. Of course we are, but also because we can't be reliant on the Chinese. It's a clear and present danger. So I'm not resisting that. If somebody says that you will have to rely on China for your computer chips, or you will have to rely on China for maybe your components for air conditioners, well, I don't know how far and how much, because maybe 50 years down the line, 40 years down the line, we might be facing Chinese as our major adversary. So we got to make sure that we are also capable of producing what we are producing, or we at least diversify our supply lines. If we don't do that, being over-dependent on China might prove to be costly politically. Economically, it sounds great that, okay, the cheapest producer supplies. But India, and I'll teach you that, you give me time till day after tomorrow, but India will attempt to make sure that we are producing things which we can also produce cheaper than what the Chinese are doing. Chinese are much richer than us today, so no question we can produce cheaper than them if we do structural reforms in our country. What are those structural reforms? I'll teach you. As I told you, give me 2 days and I will teach you. But if we do structural reforms, it is not that Chinese can produce cheaper than us. It's astounding. Chinese are a $14,000 per capita income economy. We are a $2,500 per capita income economy. By no means their labor can be cheaper than ours. Unless we have not made our labor deliberately costlier. या तो हम अपनी पॉलिसी ऐसे बना रखे हैं कि हमारा लेबर कॉस्टली है. अगर हम वो पॉलिसी ठीक कर ले तो हम बेहतर कर सकते हैं. But important is that. So this is the point. A training of the labor has to be better. That is all structural changes we'll talk about. But this is the point I'm trying to drive home. So that is why India has to diversify itself away and maybe not depend on China as much as what we depend today for our imports. तो उसके वजह से इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी बढ़ाना मेरे समझ में आता है, या उसके वजह से रेस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाना मेरे समझ में आता है. लेकिन ओवरऑल अगर हम सोचते हैं कि नहीं हम सब कुछ अपने देश में प्रोड्यूस कर लेंगे, ये होने वाला नहीं है. कोई देश नहीं कर पाते, हम भी नहीं कर पाएंगे. If God has not given us enough crude oil, where do we get it from? And if we don't have enough, say for a second, rare earth, where do we get it from? So we can have our rare earth in Jammu and Kashmir or in Punjab or in Rajasthan, but that still won't be sufficient to recover what we want. So we will have to find new friendship in Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, etc. The ABC of South America, which have huge reserves of rare earth, and rare earth can allow electric vehicles, an electric engine, and lithium ion engines and so on. तो वो जरूरत, अगर वो फ्यूचर है तो उसके लिए भी कुछ लेना पड़ेगा कहीं से. कॉपर नहीं है हमारे यहाँ, तो कॉपर कहीं से लेकर आना पड़ेगा. So nobody is self-sufficient, and in modern world I'll teach you more, but in modern world it's all supply chain creation. But if we can be also an important producer, then others will be dependent on us and we will be dependent on others. That has to be the focal point. These liberalization measures were trying to drive towards that. The reason I'm telling you these stories is that. Second point then, you write within this, FERA and FEMA. Under FERA, exporters were required to bring back their foreign exchange earnings within 3 weeks in a bracket you write later extended to 3 months. Within 3 weeks and in a bracket you write later extended to 3 months, close the bracket, to India Now this used to be a drag. ये बहुत एक कठिन चीज है. कैसे मैं बताता हूँ. So exporters were told that you are selling things abroad, you bring your income back to India within 3 weeks. Now think, now later on even 3 months, let's see, later on means around 1989, we made it 3 months. But imagine, even if it is 3 months, as an exporter, I am selling my commodities abroad, I will be giving credit to my buyer, that okay, you pay it after 6 months, you pay it after 3 months, 4 months, and if I am unable to give that credit to my buyer, the buyer will definitely buy from somebody else. या तो ये benefits मैं दूं उनको, that okay, you buy today and pay later. But if they pay later, I will have to bring money only later, or I can bring money only later. But the government was not letting me do that. And FERA would be a very draconian act. FERA would have criminal punishments. उसको criminal offense मानते थे under FERA. If you were delayed in bringing the money back, you could even be arrested with a non-bailable offense charge. Now that used to be very troublesome for business people in India. So what would these people do? 2 things. Either they would under invoice their exports, बेचते थे $100, दिखाते थे $50, और सरकार को नहीं बताते थे कितना एक्सपोर्ट किया एक्चुअली, और ब्राइब वगैरह देके काम चलाते थे. इससे ग्रोथ हुआ हवाला मार्केट का. Sorry, this led to growth of hawala market. What was this hawala market? I will sell things abroad. I will not let my government know the real amount. I will earn extra money abroad. Now how do I bring it back to India? So I'll bring it back to India secretly by paying somebody there a small commission and giving them the dollars, and they will give me equivalent rupee in India. You understand that this used to be the hawala channel route that exporters used to take. This was a bad idea. ये underworld के लिए अमृत था बिल्कुल. It was elixir to the underworld, because underworld was the only one who could do all this. So bad practices started multiplying. Another thing that many exporters were forced to do was they had to borrow abroad to quickly transfer the money. In the meantime, their buyers will pay them. This used to increase cost of transaction. So either it promoted inefficiency by increasing the cost of transaction, or it promoted black marketing or corruption by promoting hawala channel. Do I believe I'm reaching you on this? So this was the challenge again that FERA was creating. You write within that, under FEMA, exporters are allowed up to 9 months to repatriate their earnings. repatriate, repatriate, to repatriate their earnings. बाहर से कोई सामान अपने घर या पैसे अपने घर भेजने को repatriation बोलते हैं. All right, so repatriate their earning, getting anything from abroad. All right. Now 9 months is a sufficient time, and exporters are told that if you want more, we'll give you more time. In case there is some other restriction and you want more money, more time, we'll give you more time. But 9 months already given to the exporters. Then you write third point. Under FERA, private firms were not allowed to make foreign borrowings in a bracket you write external commercial borrowings. external commercial borrowings. When firms of my country borrow in a foreign market, that is called external commercial borrowings. All right, the only institution allowed to borrow abroad was government. सरकार के अलावा और किसी को परमिशन नहीं था कि आप बाहर पैसे बोरो कर सकते हैं. So no other institution was allowed to borrow money abroad except government. So no external commercial borrowings allowed. And you write within that, under FEMA, external commercial borrowings are allowed. In fact, now if you see, 82% of borrowings abroad by India are done by private company. मैं आज की बात कर रहा हूँ. In 2023, 82% of borrowings abroad are done by private companies. Out of India's total borrowings, only 17 to 18% is done by government. If India borrows $100 abroad, then only $17-18 are borrowed by the government. The rest is borrowed by private firms. All right. So in case they ask you a question in prelims, like they had done it in one year in the past, that they gave a statement and they said that government is the largest borrower abroad among all institutions in India. That's false now. Government used to be that till 1999. At the moment now, it is of private borrowings which are much more dominant than government borrowings. Yes, yes. No, if PSU is borrowing abroad, it will be firms borrowing, not government. Yes, yes, external commercial. Okay. Then you write fourth point. Under FERA, individual accounts were not allowed to transfer more than $500, in a bracket you write, later extended to $1,500, 1500. Later extended to $1,500, close the bracket, abroad in any one financial year. Now imagine, even if I keep it at $1,500 and rupee dollar exchange rate at 12 rupees a dollar, it meant 18,000 rupees. So a private account was allowed to transfer up to 18,000 rupees abroad in any given year. Now it's as good as telling you that go see the airport and come back. But obviously in real world, what would happen? This won't happen. In real world, these people will make sure that they transferred more money, again secretively, using the Hawala channel, and again funded the underworld to do this for them. अब आप सोचिए, हम ऐसी पॉलिसीज बना रहे थे जो अंडरवर्ल्ड को पूरा सपोर्ट दे रहा था. We were creating black marketing, smuggling, FERA violations, and all this was nice for the underworld because they could break these laws, they could bribe the government, and they could get the things done anyways, but making sure that common people are not left with a choice to do it by themselves. All right, that is the challenge that we were facing. In the same thing you write, under FEMA, this limit has been increased. Under FEMA, this limit has been increased to $250,000. To $250,000. All right, it used to be $1,500 till 1989. In 1999, the government made it $10,000. It kept increasing it, and in 2014, we made it $250,000, where it stays even today. The government says you can take more than this money abroad, but in that case, you will have to inform RBI and give them the reason why you need this money. All right, if it is more than $250,000, which means if it is more than something like 2 crore rupees. So if it is more than that much money, then you have to inform RBI about why you need it. You are permitted to transfer it, but you will have to fill a form and explain it to RBI. That is the only thing they say you will have to do. Otherwise, you can transfer your money abroad. All right, so that is what is allowed under FEMA. Now, if you see the differences, the difference between FERA and FEMA is same as the difference between Competition Act and MRTP. What was the difference? Premise. Laws like Competition Act, laws like FEMA are based on the premise that people will take their responsibility. Business people will not have mala fide intention. They will have bona fide intention. Give them freedom to do business. That is these laws कि FEMA या Competition Act इनका premise था कि लोगों को freedom दीजिए business की, और अगर कुछ गलत करते पकड़े जाएं, if you see them doing something wrong, you can always punish them, penalize them, have those clauses, but give them the freedom to operate. While laws like FERA or laws like competition, like MRTP, have a premise that people will have mala fide intentions. Don't let them do things, because if they do, they will end up doing some error. You understand that? Or doing something wrong. This is what is the difference between promoting growth and inhibiting it. When you put these undue restrictions, thinking if I allow something wrong will happen, this is a trouble part, because after a point it starts becoming absurd. आप सोच के देखिए, अभी जैसे हमने कर रखा है that BS4 vehicles of diesel engine and BS3 vehicles of petrol engine will be banned in Delhi. Fair enough, but these vehicles, cars mainly, contribute 8% to Delhi's automobile pollution. But we have banned them because we believe that कुछ तो किया, कुछ दिख रहा है ऐसा करने से. But we are saying that autos will be allowed, two-wheelers will be allowed. Even in vehicular pollution, they contribute 47% to total pollution. So, if you allow the major source, and if you don't allow the non-major source, it may get you some brownie points. The poor can feel happy that अच्छा कुछ किया जिससे rich परेशान है. You understand that? That ways you can make poor happy. But that doesn't mean you will get real results. FERA or MRTP kind of acts are that. It creates scope for money exchanging hands. It creates scope for wrong certificates being made, so on and so forth. You understand that? So this is the challenge that you create by trying. मैं फिर repeat कर रहा हूँ, liberalization का purpose ही ये होता है that you create a system where you create a system of trust and train people to take their own responsibility so that you get better reporting and more efficiency. When you are not liberal, when we are a control and command economy, which we were before 91, then you create a system of mistrust. And you believe if you open up or if you liberalize, people will go wrong. You understand that? So this is the challenge that you create at times. Again, I repeat that. Okay. Now, this is on external sector liberalization. You write the third thing, 3. First was industrial liberalization. Second was external sector liberalization. So you can call it A, B kind of. C or 3, whatever you are writing, that is fiscal liberalization. This is my third heading in liberalization, fiscal liberalization. Correct, Vitan? There is a competition there. Correct, Parth. You are right. Good to see you too. And you are right in that you can easily carry money now compared to what you did earlier. In fact, I again repeat, when you give freedom to people to operate, they report to you much more easily compared to what they would, if you don't give them the freedom to operate. The thing is that, like I'll give you an example. जब मैं अपने कॉलेज डेज में था तो 1996 का वर्ल्ड कप हुआ था क्रिकेट का, तो मुझे याद है हमारे पेपर के वक्त उसके कुछ मैचेस चल रहे थे। तो नेक्स्ट डे हमारा पेपर था, रात को करीब 8-9 बजे तक मैंने मैच देखा था बैठ के। पेपर प्रिपेयर्ड था तो मैं जानता था ठीक है एग्जाम में तो लिख दूंगा, लेकिन फिर भी मैच देखा था। पेपर में नंबर भी आ गए और मेरे पेरेंट्स अब नहीं रहे दोनों। अंत तक मैंने उनको नहीं बताया कि मैंने मैच देखा था पेपर के एक दिन पहले बैठ के 7 घंटे। आई नेवर हैड द करेज टू टेल देम इवन व्हेन आई ग्रू अप एंड बिकेम सेटल्ड एंड सो ऑन। लास्ट ईयर देयर वाज दिस वर्ल्ड कप फुटबॉल फाइनल। माय सन वॉच्ड दैट मैच and watched it till late in the night. Next day he had a paper. He wrote that paper and casually told me that, I have had a very good paper. I'll score well in this. But, I was very worried at a point of time that whether I will be able to revise everything or not. Because it was only when the match ended at 2:30 that I started studying. But, I felt happy that at least my upbringing is working out, that he has the courage to tell me this. कि कम से कम मुझे बता तो रहे हैं कि ये किया, अभी तो कुछ नहीं बोल रहा हूँ सर। बट एनीवेज, तो ये आपको समझा रहा हूँ that being liberal doesn't necessarily mean that people will go astray. When you try controlling, people still do things. It is just that you may not come to know about it, and that leads to illegal activities. ये बात समझा रहा हूँ। मैंने आपको लिबरलाइजेशन की पहली क्लास में ये एग्जांपल दिया था। कंपलसरी कॉलेज अटेंडेंस इज इलिबरल, मेक्स आवर ओन चिल्ड्रन लाई टू अस। हमने जबरदस्ती बना रखा है कंपलसरी अटेंडेंस, तो नहीं तो तुम्हें एग्जाम नहीं लिखने देंगे, तो वो हमें एक मेडिकल सर्टिफिकेट बना के दे देते हैं हमारे ही बच्चे। ये लो मैं बीमार था 2 हफ्ते। बात ही खत्म कर दी। इससे अच्छा अगर हम अच्छा पढ़ा लें क्लास में और बच्चों को ये ट्रेनिंग दे दें कि भाई ये पढ़ लो क्योंकि क्वेश्चन पेपर प्रेडिक्टेबल नहीं आएगा, क्वेश्चन पेपर में कुछ भी आ सकता है, तो वो भी पढ़ेंगे और जो नहीं पढ़ेंगे वो फेल हो जाएंगे। अच्छी बात है, सीख तो लेंगे कि नहीं पढ़ने पे फेल हुआ जाता है। और जब कॉलेज से निकलेंगे तो पढ़े लिखे निकलेंगे, वो इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट है। दैट व्हेन दे आर कमिंग आउट ऑफ द कॉलेज दे आर एजुकेटेड पीपल रादर देन पीपल विद डिग्री। Think of it. Most of you are out of college now. I'm sure some of you might still be there, peripherally, but most of you are out of the college. Wouldn't it be better that the momentum we have generated till 12th standard, where we have studied quite a bit, is maintained in the college, and they push us to study more, and they give us a tough paper and make us study better, and if need arises, less marks but more knowledge rather than more marks, bloated ego and less knowledge, then there is nothing for me in the job market. मुझे तो लग रहा है मैं तो 9 CGPA वाला आदमी हूं, और जब सवाल पूछा जाता है सेकेंड सेमेस्टर का तो मुझे याद ही नहीं है, क्योंकि वो सेमेस्टर बीते हुए तो 4 साल बीत गए या 2 साल बीत गए। तो फिर उस 9 CGPA का क्या रेलेवेंस रहा कि अगर आपको याद ही नहीं आपने क्या पढ़ा। तो ये सिस्टम की बात कर रहा हूं, दैट अनलेस माय सिस्टम डजंट परमिट दैट, डजंट ट्रेन मी इनटू दैट, that is permanent training, permanent growth, that's structural. Have faith in the children. These are same children who studied pretty hard till their 12th standard. Apart from that, not everybody should be asked to do academics. That's another important aspect. भाई सब लोगों को प्रोफेसर नहीं बनना, तो सब लोग BA MA करने क्यों जाएं? जिसको जो बनना है वो उस फील्ड में चला जाए। अब सोचिए अगर विराट कोहली से UPSC दिलवा रहे होते तो बर्बाद हो गए होते हम लोग भी। तो ये बात समझा रहा हूं that everybody has their own facet. The system should be created in a manner where people identify their facet, do that, and the system should support them in achieving that, rather than telling them no, everybody should be a postgraduate or everybody should be a graduate and then take up a job. You will take up a job, but take up a job that you would also aspire to do over a period. So that is the challenge I'm telling you. That's structural again. If we can do that, if the liberal system allows you to do that, pick and choose what you would like to do. An illiberal system keeps pushing you into doing the conformism. एक conformist की बात कर रहा हूँ, ये समझा रहा हूँ आपको. एक conformist की बात है कि नहीं, सोसाइटी मुझे अच्छा बोलेगी अगर मैं ये बन जाऊं. तुम कुछ भी बन जाओ, सोसाइटी तुम्हें फिर भी जो बोलना होगा वही बोलेगी. ऊपर से अगर तुम वो बन गए जो तुम नहीं बनना चाहते थे तो दुखी रहोगे ऊपर से, फिर दुनिया के लिए पेनफुल रहोगे. ऑन द अदर हैंड आप देखेंगे, मैं चूंकि मैं प्रोफेशन मेरा टीचिंग है इसलिए मैं बोलता हूँ, यू विल सी इट, सम टीचर्स हु आर ऑलवेज अपसेट, दे नेवर वांटेड टू बी वन. उनको जबरदस्ती बना दिया बेचारे को, वो इंटरनली कुछ और बनना चाहते थे, उनका फ्रस्ट्रेशन निकलता है क्लासरूम्स में. Some teachers who are never upset or very rarely upset, you will see them that even if somebody does something wrong, they smile and laugh it off and they say, okay, take care. Why? They know their job. कैसे ये मेरा काम है. ये आपको समझा रहा हूँ that unless we are not willing to pick up what we want to. Say, अगर मेरी ही बात करूं, I always wanted to be a professor after my second year graduation. I was clear in my mind that I want to teach and do research and grow in this field. I am living my dream. In my dream you do something. मैं तो खुश हूं, तुमने कुछ कर भी दिया, मान लो तुम्हारा एक फोन ही आ गया, मुझे कोई इरिटेशन नहीं होगी. तुम कहीं बाहर ही उठ के चले गए, तुम 2 लोग उठ के चले गए, मुझे फिर भी बाकी के 200 दिखेंगे जो बैठे हुए हैं. कुछ लोगों को देखता हूं इसी बात पे आपत्ति रहती है, 2 लोग क्यों चले गए. मतलब उन 200 को देखो जो बैठे हुए हैं. ये तो देखने का नजरिया है. कोई 8:30 बजे क्यों आया मेरे 8 बजे की क्लास में. भाई 8:30 बजे आ गया, छोड़ सकता था क्लास, छोड़ा नहीं उसने, आए 8:30 बजे, मतलब पढ़ने की इच्छा है. तो क्यों ना उनको ये ऑफर करो कि कोई बात नहीं, मैं समझ सकता हूं, वी आर ऑल ह्यूमंस, वी माइट गेट डिलेड वन डे, तुम्हारा जो भी छूट गया पढ़ लेना और मुझसे डाउट पूछ लेना, मैं सॉल्व कर दूंगा. That is about being a good teacher. My job is to help you, not to pressurize you and pulverize you. ये मेरा काम थोड़ी है कि मैं तुम्हें कितना बढ़िया टॉर्चर कर सकता हूँ. ना मेरा काम. मैंने एक दिन किसी को कहा भी था, कोई मुझे कह रहे थे नहीं बच्चों को फिर भी थोड़ा डरा के रखना चाहिए. सही कहा आपने, एक दांत यहाँ लगाता हूँ, 2 सींग लगाता हूँ, तब क्लास में घुसूंगा, ड्रैकुला मामा आए. मैं तुम्हें डरा के क्यों रखूं भाई, मैं कोई मारने पीटने थोड़ी हरकत करने आया. मैं तुम्हें पढ़ाने आया हूं और तुम पढ़ोगे बेस्ट जब तुम हंसते खेलते पढ़ रहे हो. देन यू विल गेट व्हाट आई एम टीचिंग यू, प्लस यू विल ट्रस्ट व्हाट आई एम टेलिंग यू, एंड दैट शुड बी द पर्पस. तो ये फील्ड की बात कर रहा हूं. किसी भी फील्ड में यू पुट समबडी इन अ पर्टिकुलर फील्ड, दे डिडंट वांट टू बी देयर, दे विल बी इन डीप ट्रबल बिकॉज देयर एप्टीट्यूड इज नॉट सजेस्टिंग दैट. So this is what I am suggesting, that if we can grow in that manner, again a liberal atmosphere allows you to grow in that manner, because you are not scared of being judged. Otherwise we get scared of being judged, that what will others think about me, what will others say about me, then it's a problem. ऐसी मजाक में कह रहा हूं मैं ये, take me completely lightly, but सोचिए हम कैसी सोसाइटी बनते जा रहे हैं कि लोग अपने ही फोटोग्राफ पे फिल्टर डालते हैं. Think about it. Whom do I want to prove to that I am good looking? I see myself every day in the mirror. I should rather have the approach of take it or leave it. अगर तुम्हें लगता है मैं नहीं गुड लुकिंग हूं, वो तुम्हारी प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है, मैं क्या करूं अब. But we are putting filters on our face. We are going for cosmetic surgery kind of luxuries. That all that we are doing so that we look good. Then what to do after that? तुम बहुत अच्छे दिखने लगोगे, फिर क्या होगा, 4 लोग कहेंगे वाह तुम कितने अच्छे दिखते हो. फिर अटेंशन सीकिंग कितनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम हो गई है सोचो. तो ये बता रहा हूं that this is not welcome for the system, because that means we are becoming a victim of our own madness. कि हमें लग रहा है नहीं कोई और मुझे अप्रिशिएट करेगा तो मुझे, ऐसे ये भी मजाक में ही कह रहा हूं, बट मैं इंडियन पेरेंट्स में भी ये प्रॉब्लम देखता हूं. जब पड़ोस वाले आके कहते हैं आपका बच्चा तो बहुत अच्छा है, उस दिन बच्चे को ज्यादा अच्छी ट्रीटमेंट. अरे वो भी कह रहे थे तू अच्छा है, तुम्हारा बच्चा है तुम्हें नहीं पता. अजीब बात है, आप ही का बच्चा है, आपको पता रहना चाहिए अच्छा है या बुरा है. किसी और के बोलने से क्या पता चलेगा. कोई बोलते भैया बुरा है, और अगर आपको पता है नहीं बुरा है तो बोलिए नहीं 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 ऐसा नहीं है भाई। आप एक आधा दिन इट कैन बी एन आउटलायर, एक दिन आप किसी को कुछ करते देख लेते हैं, बट दैट डजंट मीन द फेलो इज बैड। ऐसी ऐसी बात हो गई होगी। बट दैट इज माय पॉइंट, दैट यू नो when the social system grows in that illiberal atmosphere, then if society is not liberal, the economy cannot be liberal. My objective of giving you this part of the lecture was that unless you don't train the people in how to behave in a liberal atmosphere, you cannot let the liberal economy also prosper. You know, so for a liberal economy, we are already a liberal democracy. That is there. All right, so there is universal adult franchisee, and there is a lot of freedom to speak. People say all sorts of things to all sorts of people, and it is going on. But liberal society is a missing link at the moment. Unless we don't do that, overall liberty will not be felt. क्योंकि फिर लोग कहीं ना कहीं सोचेंगे ही कि नहीं, restriction लगाने में ही भलाई है. Don't let this happen, and that's a better thing to do. That is a challenge. That encourages people to break rules. It doesn't encourage them to follow it. You know, and then rule breakers succeed better, incentivizing others to break it further. You know, that is the challenge then that you create. Okay. Now I take it further. In fiscal liberalization, you must have done some tax reforms and all with Reddy sir, like reducing corporate tax rates or reducing income tax rates. You would have done that. I've seen your notes. You know, Reddy ji discusses that with you in the classroom. How corporate tax rates have been reduced in India and all. Have you done taxation with him? Oh, you haven't met him, that means. Much. So hardly 3-4 classes? Okay, he will be doing taxation with you. Anyways, so since he has to do that with you, he does it, don't worry. I see my colleagues' notes and then only I talk to you. मैं देख लेता हूँ कौन क्या पढ़ाते हैं, तभी आगे की बात decide करता हूँ. So what we will do then, we will write down the fiscal liberalization. Few things sir will do with you. I'll not be going into those details. Few things of course sir doesn't do. I'll go into those details. You write the first point in that, then now remember, whenever we hear the word fiscal, whenever we hear this word fiscal, that is related to the budget. All right, जब भी ये शब्द सुनो fiscal, it is related to budget of the government. That is the fiscal aspect, related to budget of the government. So when we talk about fiscal liberalization, you write first point in that, government simplified taxation mechanism in India by reducing tax rate for both personal income tax, and corporate income tax, reducing complexities in tax rule and removing exemptions, EXEM, PTIONS, exemptions which led to tax evasion. Okay, you will be taught this, you wait on that, but I'll give you some hint. For example, income tax rate till 1991 used to be above 45% for the highest tax slab. This was brought down to 30% by 1990s. All right. Similarly, corporate tax rates would be 60%, again brought into 30% by 1990s. So tax rates were reduced, Exemptions mean that how you will be allowed not to pay the tax by doing various types of expenditure. Again, government gave these exemptions to encourage people to do various type of expenditures, but gradually made them more rational. That okay, particular exemptions will be allowed, but many other exemptions were removed so that the tax system becomes simplified. Everybody knows what to pay and what not to. Also, there were several complexities about tax filing, about whom to approach, about dispute settlement. All these were removed by the government, that you can easily settle your disputes through income tax tribunals, or you could make sure that your tax filing is done on time and it is done online. So the idea was to simplify the methods and make it easier for people to file their tax than otherwise. Second point, you write, indirect tax rate system has been improved. Indirect tax rate system has been improved by introducing GST, which has resulted in a single rate of tax on all commodities all over India, and reduced burden on producers, by giving them input tax credit which also reduces inflation in the market. Now again, you will be doing this with Reddy sir. He will teach you how cascading effect operates, and cascading effect is reduced as you introduce GST. But basic idea is that if I am buying an input from you and I am paying a tax on that, and if I am allowed to deduct that tax while paying my tax on output, then that will mean the money I will pass on to the consumer will be much lesser compared to what I will pass on if this is not allowed. Do I believe I'm reaching you on this? Okay, since I said this, I'll quickly give you an example to make you understand it. Suppose there is a commodity A which is sold for 100 rupees, and then there is a 10% tax, so another 10 rupees. Say this 110 is sold to B, and this A is an input for B. All right. Now suppose the firm B adds value, इन्होंने value addition किया of 20 rupees, which means 130, and suppose they also have to pay a 10% tax, 13, the price in the market becomes 143. I hope it's easy to calculate this. This is what happens if you don't allow input tax credit. Why? सोचो ये जो 13 rupees tax देना पड़ा यहाँ, इसमें से 10 rupees tax इस input पे फिर से लगा, 2 rupees tax on this value addition, and 1 rupee tax on the tax that was paid. You see that? इस 100 पे फिर से 10 रुपए का टैक्स लगा, ₹10 का जो टैक्स दिया उस पर भी ₹1 टैक्स देना पड़ा क्योंकि उसका भी 10% ऐड हुआ और इस ₹20 पे 10%. So I'm adding 10% of this 100 again, this 10 and this 20. This tax on tax is what you call a cascading effect. That due to the tax you're paying more tax. Now imagine the consumer gets it for 143. On the other hand, if I create a situation where say something like GST comes up, where whatever tax you pay on input will be refunded, then this story will remain same. A will produce something for 100, say a tax 10% will mean 10, B gets it for 110. Now B is told that you don't worry, whatever value you add, say the value added by B is 20. Now B is told, this 10 rupees tax that you paid, we will give it back to you, all right, or you will be allowed to deduct it while paying your tax. Now think, B has purchased input worth 100 and added value worth 20. So the commodity value for B will be 120 if B is told that you will get this 10 rupees back. You understand that? So how much tax will B levy now? 12 rupees? You understand this? 10% of that? अगर B को बता दिया जाए कि जो टैक्स आपने दिया था वो टैक्स आपको वापस कर दिया जाएगा, इससे दो चीजों की बचत होगी. B will levy the tax only on value addition done and not on the entire amount that they had paid across. So B has added value 100 plus 20, 120. B knows that I have to pay a tax 12, out of which 10 will be refunded to me. I have to pay a tax 12, out of which 10 will be refunded to me. Since 10 will be refunded to me, this extra 1 is not needed. And 10 will be refunded to me, so I don't need to pass on this pressure to the consumer. So end of the day, B adds, so there is a 130 rupees worth of commodity, but B adds a tax of only 2 rupees on it, no? You understand that? B जो है उसके ऊपर ₹2 टैक्स ऐड करेंगे. ₹2 क्यों करेंगे? Because B knows I'll get this 10 rupees back. So why should I collect it from the consumer? So this 10 will not go to the consumer, and B will know that since I am not being taxed for this 10, no need to pass this one. तो B के लिए वैल्यू 110 plus 20 130 नहीं होता. B के लिए वैल्यू होता है 100 plus 20 120. You understand that? Plus 12 rupees tax that I have to pay on 120. So the price in the market will now become 132, much lesser than what it was earlier. Controls inflation. And B will be happy because B will know I don't have to take the pressure of paying 13 rupees as tax. I just have to pay 12, out of which 10 I will get back. So the net tax burden on B is equal to the value addition done by B. The tax burden on B, ये इतना ही टैक्स लिया B ने. क्यों? Because B added this value. 10% of 20 is 2. So B is paying a tax, or B is levying a tax, 10% of their value added. Nothing extra is taken from the consumer. You understand that? So the price becomes 132 and not 143. ₹11 कम कैसे हुए? 10 rupees tax on this 100 is not again levied, and 1 rupee tax on this 10 is not again levied. So 11 rupees tax burden can be reduced, and total value will be 110 rupees my price of input, 20 rupees my value addition, plus 2 rupees tax on my value addition, total value to the consumer 132. Do I believe you are clear on this? This is the basic idea of any value added taxation. अब ये तो सेनवैट और स्टेट वैट में भी होता था, बट इन सेनवैट एंड स्टेट वैट, सेंट्रल वैल्यू एडेड टैक्स एंड स्टेट वैल्यू एडेड टैक्स, इफ यू मेड अ ट्रांजैक्शन इंटर स्टेट और इफ यू मेड अ ट्रांजैक्शन बिटवीन सेंट्रल टैक्स एंड स्टेट टैक्स, दिस क्रेडिट वाज नॉट अवेलेबल. ये जो आपको डिडक्शन अलाउड था वो नहीं अलाउड था अगर आप दो अलग अलग स्टेट में ट्रांजैक्शन कर रहे हैं, या फिर अगर एक जगह आपने सेंट्रल टैक्स दिया और दूसरी जगह स्टेट टैक्स दे रहे हैं, तो उस केस में ये बेनिफिट नहीं पहुंच पाता था लोगों तक. अंडर जीएसटी इट इज अलाउड ऑन ऑल ट्रांजैक्शंस. देयरफॉर वेदर यू डू इंटर स्टेट ट्रांजैक्शन और यू डू अ सेंटर स्टेट ट्रांजैक्शन, एवरीवेयर योर वैल्यू विल बी कमिंग डाउन, which did not happen before GST. So GST creates one market, it results in a single rate of tax and removes cascading effect. Do I believe this can be kept in mind? All right, that is the benefit we have seen post-liberalization again with GST introduced. Next point you write, third, government has introduced faceless transactions, that is, tax assessment is done by a software, and there is no interaction between taxpayer and assessing officer. This helps in reducing corruption and improving efficiency. Why? Because remember, if a software is assessing my tax value, then it means that it's not in the hand or discretion of an individual to assess how much tax have I paid or not paid. All right. Similarly, if I'm not allowed to, or if there is no interaction between the taxpayer and the tax assessee, chances of corruption, bribery, etc. start becoming lesser. It doesn't get eradicated, but becomes lesser. Then you write another one. From the budget of 2022-23, government has allowed taxpayers above 75 years of age to be exempted from filing their tax if the source of their income is pension or interest. I'll tell you what that means. It's again a simplification for senior citizen. If you are a senior citizen and you get your money either through pension or through interest, then government says you don't have to file your tax. It doesn't mean you don't have to pay your tax. ये नहीं कह रही है सरकार टैक्स दो मत, कह रहे आपको फाइलिंग नहीं करनी, that your expenditures and your resources and how much is your net tax obligation, you don't have to file all that, you don't have to take help of a chartered accountant and all. You simply pay your tax and government will internally verify if the tax amount you have paid is correct or not, and given no objection, nobody will come to you and ask you things. Why? Because on things like pension or things like interest, tax is deducted at source. All right. So now if tax is deducted at source and you're paying your tax after that, no need to again file it further, increasing complexity. So there's again a liberal policy of reducing complexity in tax filing. All right. Then you write one more. From the budget of 2023-24, the budget of 2023-24, government has introduced a clause that on any dispute below rupees 50 lakh, of tax, the department has to raise it within 3 assessment years. Department has to raise it within 3 assessment years. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Otherwise, it used to lead to a lot of tax harassment. Now, what was this tax harassment? That you impose a tax, all right. Now, 10 years later, 8 years later, you are sending a notice to a person that your dues are left from 8 years back, from 10 years back. और बोलते थे 25,000 ड्यू बचा है, 50,000 ड्यू बचा है, ये आपको पे करना पड़ेगा. Many people would not even have the records many times, and they ended up paying this money, sometimes for no fault. Now the government has made a rule that if you have to raise a dispute, that some money is left unpaid, it cannot be taken to before 3 years of assessment. For example, if this is the assessment year, say 24-25, then you cannot pull it back before 21-22. No dispute can be raised before that. तो अगर आपको कुछ पता भी चला और वो 3 साल से पुरानी बात हो गई and disputable amount is less than 50 lakh rupees, you are not allowed to raise it. The purpose is to make sure that tax harassment doesn't happen. People are not served unnecessary notices. All right. So that is all about simplifying the methodology. Again, repeat. इन सभी के अलावा एक बात का ध्यान रखोगे. In this year's budget, when they will present it, I don't know how far the interim budget will go. Last time when there was elections, in the interim budget also the government had almost presented a full budget. So we will have to wait and watch what happens finally this year. But if they present a proper budget, or if they don't present it in April, the new government will present it in June, July sometimes. So with the budget, I teach you certain topics which are related to steps taken in the budget for improving taxation mechanism. Note them down for sure and add them to your answer sheet when you are writing your mains examination. All right, or in next year prelims they remain valid. That whatever changes are happening in 1 year in the budget should be kept in mind. कि क्या क्या changes लाए गए हैं taxation system में in improving the taxation mechanism. So just keep that in mind. Reddy sir will teach you up to this budget anyways. So beyond that, I teach you in every budget that what all has happened. So make sure that you have that noted down. Okay. Then you just give a heading now. Fourth is for the C was fiscal liberalization, then D. You write monetary liberalization. On monetary liberalization, it's all related to banking reforms and all. And I will be teaching you these reforms when I'm teaching you money and banking. तो अभी के लिए आप बस ये लिख के रख लो so that you know that 4 types of liberalization are there. Industrial, external, fiscal and monetary. I will talk to you on monetary liberalization, again I repeat, when I'm teaching you money and banking. All right, there is a question online that Parth asks me. He says that, sir, it is said, and I am the one who always says it, that good economics is good politics. If you practice good economic policies, then politically you will be rewarded because your people will do better. And if your people do better, then that is of course, good economics that you should go for. And Parth asks me then why did Narasimha Rao government lose elections in 96? Mind you, if your good economics is not reaching majority of the people, if the reforms are restricted to urban areas, if the reforms are helping the industry and services, but they are not helping agriculture, if the reforms are not related to improving standard of living for all, chances are you might lose elections in spite of made some good policies. It applies on Narasimha Rao ji's government. It also applies on Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji's government, 98 to 2004, when they were making some good policies, but they lost elections because their policies did not reach the bottom end. So the idea should be to make sure that how do you make policies where the reforms happen in your rural areas, upliftment happens to people who are deprived, you reduce the unorganized sector. If we can do all that, then more and more people will gain. And if more people will gain, then the electoral politics will reward you. Understand it like that. If that doesn't happen, then it will be trouble. And to let that happen, institutions are important. Go back to the talk I did with you in inclusive growth. All right, that if you grow inclusive, you are rewarding more people. If you are rewarding more people, upliftment does take place. But if you don't do that and you just do for populist politics and you believe that, okay, by populism I'll keep my people happy, you might keep them happy for 10 years or 15 years. But after that there will be a crisis. And then people won't be that happy. So that is what every leader has to understand. The important point is whether we have enough leadership to understand that. That is a question mark, no doubt. कि किसी भी leader को ये समझ में रखना होता है, अब वो leadership है या नहीं वो एक अलग बात होती है. Anyways, देन जैसे ऐसे ही एक मजाक में बोल रहा हूँ ये भी, लेकिन इंपॉर्टेंट बात है, कभी कभी एज पेरेंट्स ऐसी सरकार भी गलती करते हैं. गवर्नमेंट सिटीजन रिलेशन इज सेम लाइक पेरेंट चाइल्ड रिलेशन. कभी कभी आप देखेंगे पेरेंट्स इंसेंटिवाइज करने की जगह सिबलिंग राइवलरी शुरू कर देते हैं. तो ये गड़बड़ बात है. कंपैरिजन करके, अरे भैया तो ऐसा नहीं करता था जैसा तुम करते हो. अब उसका असर ये नहीं पड़ेगा कि ये सुधर जाएंगे भैया को देखकर या भैया की तरह बन जाएंगे. आपने भैया के प्रति एक विपरीत परिस्थिति डाल दी इनके मन में, इसके चक्कर में मैं डांट खा रहा हूं. यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? अब वो लाइफ लॉन्ग राइवलरी बनी रह जाती है. अब कहीं पर मैं देखता हूं, उम्मीद है ना देखने को मिले ज्यादा जगह, ये दुखी होने की बात है, बट मेनी प्लेसेस आई सी पीपल आर वेरी नाइस टू द एंटायर वर्ल्ड एक्सेप्ट फॉर देयर ओन पीपल. अपने सिबलिंग्स की बात आई, किसी ने कह दिया 2 बीघा जमीन मुझे दे दो, नहीं मैं अपने हिस्से का नहीं छोड़ूंगा. वैसे आपका पड़ोसी आपकी गाड़ी ले जाके कहीं ले जा रहा है, उसको अलाउ कर, हाँ ले जाइए, अरे आप ही की गाड़ी है. मतलब पड़ोसी मेरी गाड़ी ले जाए वो अलाउड है. मेरा ब्रदर हो या सिस्टर हो वो बोले कि भाई 2 बीघा जमीन मुझे दे दो, नहीं ये मेरी जमीन है. तो आप सोच के देखिए ये कहां से बातचीत आई मन में. शॉर्ट टर्म बेनिफिट्स को देख रहे थे लोग कि सिबलिंग राइवलरी क्रिएट कर देंगे तो शायद दोनों सुधर जाएंगे. लॉन्ग टर्म में दोनों लड़े आपस में. So similarly, government has to be very conscious while making policies regarding its people. Short term, you might feel that I can put one against another, and it might result in giving me some gains. Long term, the fight will become so large that you won't be able to contain it. Short term, you might feel that, oh, I can give 100 rupees to one set of people, and these set of people will then vote for me. Long term, they will become so dependent on you that they won't be able to vote for you. So, or they won't be willing to vote for you. So politically, you have to be very conscious about leadership quality, I repeat again. If your leadership is not there, it will be a missing link. So try uplifting people. अभी जैसे बिहार गवर्नमेंट बोले that we will increase reservation to 65% plus 10% EWS. बढ़ा लीजिए रिजर्वेशन, नौकरी कहाँ है? बड़ा सवाल तो ये है, where is the job? और अगर जॉब है भी तो सैलरी नहीं दे रहे टाइम पर बहुत लोगों को. तो मैं ऐसे नौकरी के लिए लड़ूंगा कहां जहां नौकरी है ही नहीं. साथ में अगर आप ऐसे काम करते रहेंगे लगातार, यू आर क्रिएटिंग अ न्यू सेट ऑफ elite. Being born in Bihar and my village being there, I keep going there. तो ये नॉर्मल हो रहा है. ओल्ड elite कहीं नहीं गए हैं, वो अभी भी वही हैं. न्यू elite क्रिएट हो गए और बाकी लोग डाउन ट्रॉडन ही रह गए. This is what selective policies of upliftment do. We are not uplifting the entire tide. We are uplifting few, trying to show it as social justice. So what we have created, I repeat again, the old elites remain. जो so called upper caste हैं, उनका dominance कहीं खास नहीं गया है. The new elites have come up. Other backward caste में कुछ more equals निकल के आ गए हैं. और अब एक नया कहानी शुरू की गई है. Extremely backward caste, and now we will work on them. But हर section में क्या हो रहा है? कुछ लोग जो पहले से ही gifted हैं वो ऊपर आ गए, बाकी के लोग नीचे ही रह गए, और जो नीचे रह गए उनको ऊपर लाने का कोई प्रयास नहीं. अब आप सोचिए लॉन्गर रन में ये लोग क्या बनेंगे आपके लिए? लाइबिलिटी बिग टाइम, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट बीइंग अपलिफ्टेड. एंड यू कैन टेक एनी सो कॉल्ड अफर्मेटिव एक्शन विदाउट अपलिफ्टिंग ऑल. अगर मैं अपने गांव में जाता हूं, मेरे गांव की जो सबसे पिछड़ी प्रजाति है वो मुसहर लोग होते हैं, तो मुसहरों की हालत में कोई खास तरक्की नहीं देखी मैंने. They used to live a life. हाँ, फिर जो मैं कह रहा था थोड़ी देर पहले, if the country has become rich, their living standard to that extent has become better. But that doesn't mean that their relative situation or even their absolute position has grown up that much better. And that's not happening. And they are the deprived ones in the system. So politically that becomes infeasible. इसका best example है ब्राजील और अर्जेंटीना. Till as late as 1920, it used to be said that Argentina and Brazil will compete with United States of America to be the number one country in this world. Now we see Brazil and Argentina are nowhere. And that happened because of this populist policies that their governments used to follow. मैं इसको अपलिफ्ट कर दूंगा, उसको नीचे कर दूंगा, इनको पैसे दे दूंगा, उनको नहीं दूंगा. नतीजा क्या हुआ? कोई ठीक से अपलिफ्ट नहीं हुए. और 5-10% जो सुपर रिच थे वो सुपर रिच रहे. उनके साथ कुछ और लोगों ने बैंड वैगन ज्वाइन कर लिया, और लगा सबको कुछ, किसी का तो अपलिफ्टमेंट हुआ. जिनका हुआ वो पहले से ही उस पोजीशन में थे कि खुद को अपलिफ्ट कर सकते थे. But the overall social system did not grow well. An exactly contrary place is South Korea. South Korea's per capita income used to be 1/9, mind you, 1/9 of Argentina and Brazil till as late as 1960. Today, South Korea's per capita income is 3 times more than them. And they are more equitable. They have water for all. They have food for all. They have a system where people are well trained, and they are a service-led economy compared to what, say, a Brazil or Argentina could become. So we have to be careful. एक commonality इंडिया में और ब्राजील और अर्जेंटीना में देखता हूँ, इसलिए मुझे डराता है. Majority of the people still in those countries are in agriculture. इतनी हाई पर कैपिटा इनकम के बाद भी 20-25% लोग ब्राजील में और अर्जेंटीना में डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली रिलेटेड टू एग्रीकल्चर हैं. इंडिया वही सिम्टम्स शो कर रहा है. ये कब होता है? When you have a dual economy, one set of people who are very backward, who are not trained enough, who don't have the infrastructure to go beyond agriculture. Another set of people who have skyrocketed, so they are the elite, they are working in service sector, and they are making supercomputers, and they are running big cars, and so on. That is a problem part. Because then some set of people will be very rich, others will be left behind, and economy will never take that huge growth story. So this we have to be careful. India's reforms are guilty of ignoring the poor of India. And that is a challenge due to which अब हम लोग उनको खुश, अब हम गरीबों को खुश करने के लिए क्या कह रहे हैं? तुम ये भी मुफ्त का ले लो, वो भी मुफ्त का ले लो. क्योंकि हमारे पास बहुत इनकम आ रहा है और हमें पता ही नहीं उस पैसे का क्या करना है. क्योंकि उसके लिए तो एजुकेट करना पड़ता है खुद को कि मैं इस पैसे का क्या करूं. एक्सपर्ट्स की बात माननी पड़ती है. तो वो हमें आपको मैं बात प्रूफ कर देता हूं जो मैं कह रहा हूं, and then I'll take you into the next talk. आप सोच के देखिए, 1991 India's GDP, nominal GDP of course, was $220 billion, and our exchange rate was 12 rupees a dollar. So it was something like 4.4 trillion rupees, a little more than that. Let's increase it, let's make it 5 trillion rupees in 1991. This used to be our GDP in 1991. Around 5 trillion rupees is where we stood. And 11% was the tax collected by central government. 11% of GDP. Now at 5 trillion rupees, 11% meant around 550 billion rupees was the tax collected by central government. Population in 1991 was 84 crore people, the census. You bring it to 2023, our GDP goes up to $3.3 trillion at an exchange rate of around 80 rupees a dollar. That is where we are. So it is around 270 trillion rupees. Nominal terms, of course. And our tax collection by central government is 12% of GDP, approximately again. Which means even if I remove the share of the state government and all, the tax collected by central government remains around 26 lakh crore, which used to be 55,000 crore. Population is 1.4 billion. अगर मैं मान लूं इन्फ्लेशन 8 times भी हो गया, I mean price have increased from 1 rupee to 8 rupees in the last 30 years, जबकि उससे कम हुआ है, और अगर 8 times भी मान लूं, this 55,000 crore will be something like 4.4 lakh crore. While today the tax collection is 26 lakh crore. You can imagine even in real terms, the tax collection is huge today compared to what we had, say 35 years back or 30 years back, with population not having grown that much. 84 crore has become 140 crore. So government has much more money today to help people than what they had earlier. इसमें मैं state government के taxes तो जोड़ नहीं रहा. That's another 5-6% of GDP. So you can imagine that with this much extra money, we can do several things for ourselves. Unfortunately, we are financing a lot of inefficient activities. And as I said, because maybe we don't know what to do with this surplus money. हमें ठीक से आइडिया नहीं सरप्लस मनी को करना क्या है, कैसे इस्तेमाल करें. शाहजहां वाली हालत है, खूब सारा पैसा था मुगल एम्पायर के पास, उनको पता ही नहीं था क्या करना है, तो ताजमहल बना दिया. बिकॉज मॉडर्न एजुकेशन, मॉडर्न सिस्टम नहीं पता था. अंग्रेज उसी जमाने में रिनासा कर रहे थे. मैं 1640s की बात कर रहा हूँ. प्रोटेस्टेंट मूवमेंट चल रहा था, मॉडर्न एजुकेशन की बात चल रही थी, सेंट्रल बैंकिंग हो रहा था. तो 1750 में उनके यहाँ इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ और 1757 में यहाँ पे बैटल ऑफ प्लासे हुआ. और 200 साल जम के हमें लूटा उन्होंने, गुलाम बनाया, क्योंकि हमसे ज्यादा प्रोग्रेस्ड थे. हमें मॉडर्न थिंकिंग नहीं आती थी, अब तो आती है. So I see no reason why today we are not spending our money for much more productive activities. I'm not saying we are not spending it at all, but much more can be done with the extra tax that we are collecting compared to what we are doing today. So we don't need schemes to give. तो जब कोई कहते हैं ये स्कीम इतने सारे फ्रीबीज दिए जा रहे हैं, फ्रीबीज दिए जाएंगे क्योंकि सरकार के पास है पैसे फ्रीबीज देने के. बट दिक्कत है कि फिर बाकी जगह मामला अटकता है. कहाँ बिजली बिल पेंडिंग रह जाता है, स्टेट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड्स के रिफॉर्म नहीं हो रहे, सरकारी स्कूल का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ठीक नहीं हो रहा, सरकारी कॉलेजेस धीरे धीरे डिसफंक्शनल हो रहे हैं, सरकारी अस्पताल में नॉर्मल सेंस में कोई नहीं जाता. इस पैसे से वो किया जा सकता है. You can work on public education, public health care, public college system, research and development in public sphere, and so on and so forth. And that will upgrade people, uplift them, and make India much better compared to where we are at the moment. We are doing good, but we can do much better. So this is the money part. Just keep that in mind. आपको analysis के लिए बताता रहता हूँ. खबर रहेगी कि ये चीज़ हो रही है तो analytical भी रहोगे. हमारे यहाँ मैक्सिमम लोगों को खबर ही नहीं कि ये सब बातें भी हो रही हैं. अखबार को सरकार की क्रिटिसिज्म छापने से फुर्सत नहीं है, तो हर बात में क्रिटिसाइज कर देते हैं बस. आप कभी कभी आर्टिकल्स पढ़ के देखिएगा, ये गलत है, ये गलत है, ये गलत है. ठीक कैसे करें हमें क्या पता. तो ये समझना जरूरी है कि ठीक कैसे करें जानना जरूरी है. क्या हमारे रिसोर्सेज हैं, कैसे करें. और हर चीज गलत भी नहीं है. इट्स नॉट दैट एवरीथिंग इज गोइंग बैड इन इंडिया, but whatever is going wrong in India, how we can improve upon it is the suggestion you should keep thinking always. All right, now I take you further. This is the second part of reform. One was liberalization, two is public sector reforms. I will not. I'll teach you that with banking and finance, money and banking. When I will teach you money, I will tell you monetary liberalization. Yes, poverty has been on sale in India for very long, with not only by politicians, even by normal people. You see, you make a slumdog millionaire and you become a millionaire, isn't it? That's what happens. So poverty of India has been sold for very long. गरीबी बेचने की तो बीमारी रही है हमारे यहाँ. ऑल राइट, बहुत बार देखेंगे इंडियन जो इंडिया की पॉवर्टी की बात करते हैं विदेशों में, उनको बड़ा अच्छे से सुना जाता है कि हाँ ये कुछ सिंसियर बात कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनको ये इंप्रेशन है कि हम लोग गरीब ही रहेंगे हमेशा. दे थिंक लाइक दैट. बट और हम गरीब हैं और उतने नहीं जितना वो लोग सोचते हैं. आई मीन दे मे बी overestimate us when it comes down, goes down. Okay, अब देखना कुछ बातें समझना. Whenever you see this word public sector, this means government-owned institution. That is a public sector, government-owned institution, and there can be public sector enterprises, these are formed under Companies Act and any decision regarding them can be completely taken by government. So these are public sector enterprises formed under Companies Act, and any decision regarding them can be completely taken by the government. Say example, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, or Indian Oil Corporation, or Steel Authority of India Limited. These are all typical public sector enterprises. They are formed under Companies Act, and any decision regarding them can be completely taken by the government. And another is public sector undertaking. Public sector undertaking. These are formed by a special act of Parliament, and any change can be done only by parliamentary approval. Any change can be done only by parliamentary approval. You cannot simply sell it off, or you cannot simply purchase things in it or make changes. For example, LIC or SBI. These are public sector undertakings. So there can be public sector enterprise and there can be public sector undertaking. See, think like when it comes to a Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, if the government wants, it can sell 10%, 20%, 50%, any amount of share to the public or to other enterprise, and there will be no restriction. But in case of LIC, when the government had to sell even 3.5% of its shares, it had to get an approval from the parliament. It had to amend the act. So it is important that under undertaking, you need to get an approval from parliament. Under enterprise, you don't need to do that. All right. Enterprises are formed under Companies Act, so government has the entire ownership right. But undertakings are formed under a special act of parliament and government rights are defined by the act. ऑलराइट, अंडरटेकिंग के केस में एक स्पेशल एक्ट पास होता है और जैसे एक्ट ने आपके राइट्स डिफाइन किए हैं, सरकार के उतने ही अधिकार होंगे उस कंपनी पे. एंटरप्राइज में सरकार के स्वामित्व के अधिकार हैं, उनके मालिकाना हक है. गवर्नमेंट इज लाइक एन ओनर एंड गवर्नमेंट कैन डू व्हाटएवर इट वुड लाइक टू. नाउ देयर कैन बी सेंट्रल public sector enterprises and state public sector enterprises, and similarly central public sector undertaking and state public sector undertaking. All right, there can be central public sector enterprises and state public sector enterprises and central public sector undertaking and state public sector undertaking. That means what? Owned by central government or owned by state government. So there can be ownership of the central government and there can be ownership of the state government. Now, we have 356. I will change these numbers with the new economic survey, but for the time being, we have these numbers. We have 356 central public sector enterprises and 974 state public sector enterprises in India. And we have approximately 150 central public sector undertaking and 250 state public sector undertaking. Approximately. This number keeps changing because some of these are opened up, some of these are closed down. तो ये frequently बदलते रहते हैं. But ये numbers हैं approximately, that there are 400 undertakings in India and there are 1300 enterprises in India. I am trying to show something to you. With more than 1700 public sector enterprises are undertaking in India, if still somebody says that India is becoming capitalist, then the capitalists like John Stuart Mill or Adam Smith would turn in their grave. कि किसको कैपिटलिस्ट किसे बुला रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये तो दूर दूर तक कैपिटलिज्म के आसपास नहीं दिखता. That we have more than 1,500 public sector enterprises in India. And quite dominant in some of our structure. Like 80% of heavy electrical market in India is dominated by Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. So it's not that private sector operates in a dominant form in any of those places. Okay. Now, recall when I taught you India in 1956, I taught you about the objectives of public sector like price control, employment generation, or balanced regional development, restricting concentration of wealth, earning profit which can be used for welfare of the people. ये सब आपने लिखा था जब मैं आपको इंडिया इन सेकेंड 5-year plan पढ़ा रहा था. And then when I was teaching you India between 66 and 80, I was teaching you about the challenges that India had, in public sector. For example, overstaffing, or for example, the pricing was not correct, underpricing everything, or for example, lack of capital infusion, money was not infused at the right time, like lack of technological development, lack of discipline in the labor force. These were some, and others. So there were several challenges of the public sector that we had starting 60s, continuing even today. And that is what requires public sector reforms. All right, that the story is that कि पब्लिक सेक्टर की जो इनएफिशिएंसी हुई उसके वजह से इस बात की रिक्वायरमेंट आई कि पब्लिक सेक्टर को रिफॉर्म करना पड़ेगा. द इनएफिशिएंसी ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर हैज लेड टू पब्लिक सेक्टर रिफॉर्म्स. सो व्हाटएवर यू रोट इन द पॉइंट्स India between 66 and 80 on poor performance by public sector become the reasons for requiring public sector reforms. All right. So what can be those reforms? So you write within that, now I'm teaching you the public sector reforms. You write one within that, provision of autonomy. Provision of autonomy. This is one reform. Autonomy implies freedom to take decisions without restricted by delays and interference of the ministry. All right? This is autonomy, that if the public sector is given the freedom to take decisions without restricted by delays and interference of the ministry. All right. So government started it in 1992. Government introduced a scheme or a system called Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. It is actually a legal document which will be signed between two parties, and whatever is the understanding reached will then be respected by both. All right, that is the idea. It can be more than two parties, but let's say for the time being two parties. कि अगर लोग मिलकर ये MOU sign करते हैं, तो जो भी MOU sign हुआ, दोनों parties उसको respect करेंगे, and they will go by whatever is the clauses, whatever are the clauses in that. So this MOU was signed between public sector enterprise and concerned ministry. You know, this MOU was signed between public sector enterprise and concerned ministry. All right, the public sector enterprise and concerned ministry together will sign this MOU. All right. It will have details. When I say concerned ministry, the ministry to which they are reporting. For example, Indian Oil Corporation will sign it with Ministry of Petroleum, or Steel Authority of India Limited will sign it with Ministry of Steel. You understand that? Like that. So the ministry to which they are reporting. So then this PSC and concerned ministry, and it will have details about targeted price, targeted output, targeted profit, etc. It will have details about this targeted price, targeted output, targeted profit, etc. And you know, once this MOU is signed, then it was said that there will be no day-to-day interference by the ministry in public sector. All right, once the MOU was signed, there will be no day-to-day interference by the ministry in the working of public sector. All right, once MOU was signed, there will be no day-to-day interference by the ministry in public sector. Once MOU was signed, there will be no day-to-day interference by the ministry in public sector. Day-to-day interference means on a daily basis and all permissions to be sought. It won't be needed. एक बार ये MOU sign हो गया, public sector के अंदर ministry को interfere करने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं रहेगी. There will be no day-to-day interference by the ministry in public sector. Now this was a good beginning. It continues till today. This policy is there even today. But the challenge with this policy is that still decisions related to investment, decisions related to appointment, decisions related to entering a joint venture, all this is still taken by, or was still taken by, the ministry. The public sector could not take these decisions on its own. ये अलाउड नहीं था कि अगर पब्लिक सेक्टर को बड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट करना है या जॉइंट वेंचर में एंटर करना है या फिर नया प्लांट वगैरह लगाना है तो अपनी मर्जी से नहीं कर सकते थे. They were still dependent on the ministry. Now the public sector kept complaining. In 1997, गवर्नमेंट सेटअप अ न्यू सिस्टम, एक नया सिस्टम इंट्रोड्यूस किया सरकार ने. मिस्टर पी चिदम्बरम वॉज द फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर इन दोज डेज. ही सेट अप अ सिस्टम कॉल्ड नवरत्न. So he brought in the idea that public sector will be given more autonomy on the basis of their performance. All right, and they will have full autonomy to make appointments and to enter into new businesses and so on. That was the idea of Navratna. All right, and he selected 9 public sector firms. That is why he gave it a name Navratna, and he said that they will have the freedom. So this was about higher freedom to operate on the basis of performance. Higher freedom to operate on the basis of performance. All right, performance के basis पे freedom दिया to operate to public sector. And how will the performance be assessed? So to assess the performance, they said that we will be judging you on turnover. Turnover is the revenue earned by sale of goods and services. That is turnover. Revenue earned by sale of goods and services. This is what we call turnover. All right, so when we see this term turnover, it is the revenue earned by sale of goods and services. चीजों को बेचकर आप जो पैसा कमाते हैं, that is turnover. Suppose I am someone who manufactures this writing stick and say it is 20 rupees each. So if I sell 100 units and earn 2000 rupees, that becomes my turnover. Then another thing taken was net worth. मैं फिर रिपीट कर दूं, परफॉर्मेंस को जज करने के क्राइटेरिया थे, that how good you are performing, how bad you are performing. So judgment was done on this basis. So net worth means total assets minus total liability. Total assets minus total liability. Total assets means everything that creates value for you, and liabilities are all your obligations to others. Say for example, अगर मैं तुम्हें बोलूं that I have got cars worth 1 crore rupees, you'll say good sir, nice for you. Then I say I have a house of 2 crore rupees, you'll say even better sir. Then I say I have a loan of 6 crore rupees. My net worth becomes minus 3 crore. You see that? So my assets could have made me look like a rich person, but my net worth shows me the real attribute that I have. So net worth, the idea is that whether for individual or for companies, you try judging what is the actual value of that firm. And the third thing is profit. Profit is the revenue earned, जो पैसा आपने कमाया, minus cost incurred, जो खर्चे आपने किए. So revenue minus cost is profit. So it was decided in 1997 that we will be creating Navratnas on the basis of turnover, net worth and profit. Unfortunately, the government fell the same year. It was Dev Gowda ji's government. It didn't last long, 10 months hardly. And this policy was not discontinued. The future governments continued with it, but the policy was not given any major impetus. इसको discontinue तो नहीं किए, लेकिन इसको कोई खास बढ़ावा भी नहीं मिला. Finally, again, in 2010-11, government kind of revived this policy by classifying public sectors into Mini Ratna, Category 2 and Category 1, Navratna, and Maharatna. Alright, these three categories have been created for public sector. Mini Ratna, category 2 and category 1, Navratna and Maharatna. And again, the idea is the better you perform, larger will be your category, or bigger will be your category, more will be your freedom. What are these freedoms? I am telling you. In your book also, I have given you the details on these, but few things I am making you write just so that you can understand what these things imply. All right, and your books also have these. Book also has these details. Do read through that. Yes.
P.G. Dabaram gave the name
Navratna.
So was he not planning to add more?
No, it's just about starting it off. They were made into 11 by Vajpayee government later on. एक नाम दे दिए नवरत्न, आइडेंटिफाई करने का तरीका था, ठीक है? All right. Then you write below this Mini Ratna category 2, and I'm going to give you small write-ups on those. Mini Ratna category 2. And you write in that all those central public sector units, all those central public sector units. Now, when I use this term central public sector units, it means both enterprise and undertaking owned by the central government. All right, that is central public sector units. So all those central public sector units which have a positive net worth, positive net worth means assets more than liability, and which earn profit for 3 consecutive years, earn profit for 3 consecutive years are included in this category. I hope you understand it. They should have profit for 3 years and they should have a positive net worth. You write, they have the freedom to make investments. They have the freedom to make investments up to rupees 300 crore or their net worth comma, whichever is lesser. Understand this? So if my net worth is more than 300 crore, then the maximum limit is 300 crore. If my net worth is lesser than 300 crore, then whatever is my net worth, I can invest as much. Alright? So freedom to invest up to their 300 crore or their net worth, whichever is lesser. Why as in? Oh, that is because if you spend more than your net worth and then you go bust, who will pay for it? You understand that? So you can spend up to your net worth. Okay. Then you write below that, change the paragraph and write Mini Ratna category 1. Mini Ratna category 1. And there you write all those central public sector units all those central public sector units which have a minimum net worth of rupees 300 crore and which earn profit for 3 consecutive years, or which have earned profit of at least rupees 30 crore in one of the last 3 years, can qualify in it. So remember, again, which have net worth of at least 300 crore, which must have either earned 3 years of profit, but by chance if they have not earned 3 consecutive years of profit, then 1 out of last 3 years, they should have made a profit of 30 crore or more. All right, so you write in that, can qualify in this category. You wrote that? Okay. Understand this. I'm using continuously the word can qualify. I'm not saying will. It is not automatic. It is not that if you meet the criteria, you are automatically given the status. You meet this criteria, it is the necessary condition, and you will be given the status only when the Ministry of Finance considers you to be in that category. All right, so it is not an automatic category. The point is that. In the same thing, sorry, yes.
When we say public sector units, do we include both enterprise and undertaking or सिर्फ enterprise?
Both. ठीक है.
You said सिर्फ only enterprise.
Did I? Or I said both enterprise and undertaking? कहाँ थे बीच पे ये बताओ. Okay. Yes. नहीं, ये रिवाइज होता रहा है, अब की बात कर रहा हूँ. हाँ, it has been revised. I'm telling you the numbers today. You write in that they have the freedom in the same point, Mini Ratna category 1, they have the freedom to make investment. They have the freedom to make investment up to rupees 500 crore, or their net worth, whichever is lesser. I hope that clarifies. So idea is you give Mini Ratna category 2. If the company does well, they can go into Mini Ratna category 1. If they do better, they can go up to become a Navratna. All right, so you write next point, Navratna. And you write in that all those central public sector units, you can write CPSU, all those central public sector units which have been a Mini Ratna, for 3 consecutive years, so they are all those units which have a Mini Ratna status for 3 years, either 1 or 2, that's not mentioned, but Mini Ratna status for 3 years, and which score 60 points, make it minimum 60 points, which score minimum 60 points out of 100 given by the government on the basis of six criteria. On the basis of 6 criteria. Now, I'm deliberately not making you write these criteria. It's there in your book, so I'm avoiding duplication. But criteria is like profit earned by the firm, wage expenditure done by the firm, the profit after tax by the firm, earnings per share of the firm. All right, these are the criteria based on which government values them. जो Ministry of Finance है, उनकी ranking, उनको points देते हैं on their performance. And if they score 60 points out of 100, and if they have been a Mini Ratna for 3 years, you write in that, then they can qualify in this category. Then they can qualify in this category. I actually insist that you look into your book because in your book I have given you the criteria plus the points attached to each of them. In case sometimes they try going that side in the prelims exam, you will have your things ready. All right. Then you write below that, they have the freedom to invest up to rupees 1,000 crore, make appointments till general manager level, and take all their operational decisions. All right, then you write below that, now when I say take all their operational decisions, it means choosing the source of raw material or whatever price they want to charge or whatever quality they want to produce. These are called operational decisions, all decisions to operate. All right, do business. So whether the choice of raw material they make or the price they charge or the quantity they produce or the quality they choose, all that is operational decisions. Then you write next, Maharatna, and you write in that all those central public sector units which have been a Navratna for 3 consecutive years, and which have a minimum turnover which have a minimum turnover of 25,000 crore rupees, of course, comma, minimum net worth of 15,000 crore and minimum profit of 5,000 crore are, make it can qualify in this category. Can qualify in this category. They have the freedom to make investments, or you can write invest, up to rupees 5,000 crore, comma, enter into foreign collaboration. Like again, they don't have the restriction to ask for permissions. They can do it on their own. Enter into foreign collaboration, comma, make all appointments except board of director, make all appointments except board of director and take all operational decisions. In the same thing you write, they have maximum autonomy. They have maximum autonomy among all public sector. Okay, now remember one more thing. It is possible that if they don't perform any Mini Ratna, Navratna, Maharatna, if they don't perform, they can be downgraded. That is also possible. The rules don't say that once given, the criteria will not be taken away. But we have no instance till now of any enterprise being downgraded. Alright, that is the point also to keep in mind. ये नियम में नहीं है कि आप downgrade नहीं हो सकते. It is possible they can be downgraded, but there is no instance till now that any of them have been downgraded. Alright, but if they don't perform, it's a possibility they can be downgraded. That always exists. Also remember, the number keeps changing because some Mini Ratnas can become a Navratna and some Navratnas can become a Maharatna over a period. I will give you the final number after 31st March 2024 in the current affairs class when we are clear about the number at the end of the financial year. Alright, that number I'll give it to you, but the numbers can keep changing also. Alright, now see, there are two benefits of this scheme. Two major benefits. मैं आपको लिखवा भी दूंगा, but पहले समझ लो. Number one, it encourages public sector to compete. Why? It does not reserve industry for them. वो ये नहीं कहता कि ये इंडस्ट्री आपके लिए रिजर्व्ड है, सिर्फ आप ही प्रिवेल करेंगे. So that means it's not only the public sector which prevails. They are told you go compete, and if then you perform well, we are giving you more and more autonomy. So that is one, that it allows them to compete, perform well, and take their autonomy. जितना अच्छा performance होगा, उतनी ज़्यादा autonomy होगी. And the second benefit it creates is that it encourages them to invest more, doesn't encourage them to remain small. The more they invest, the larger is their capacity creation, larger will be their freedom. All right, like Mini Ratna can invest up to a limit, and if you invest more, you can qualify as category 1, and if you invest more, you can qualify as Navratna, and so on. So it encourages investments, promotes investments, and it is competition oriented, not restrictive in nature. Both these things help quite a bit in making public sector efficient and on growth. एक बात और समझना, there are certain sectors in India where we will need a public sector, whether they make profit or loss. And these are sectors which we can't compromise on. For example, law and order, defense. In these things, public sector is not there to make profit. Public sector is there to operate. Or for that matter, administration, education, healthcare. यहाँ पे किस बात का ख्याल रखना है? The quality that we are giving. If I am giving free education, but I am giving a bad quality education, that's not a good idea. If I am giving free health care, but I am giving bad quality health care, मैं आपको पीने का पानी मुफ्त दूंगा, जिसको आपको आरओ लगा के साफ करना होगा. ये कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ. जो गरीब है उनके साथ आप कोई बेनिफिट नहीं दे रहे. You understand that by saying कि आपको पीने का पानी मुफ्त मिलेगा. So the point I'm driving home is, these are core ideas of the government, CORE, core, central ideas. Law and order, administration, defense, water supply, education, healthcare. And you need public sector in this to provide good supply, good quality, free of cost, at minimal cost, whatever is feasible, to make sure people have a good standard of living. But then there are sectors like infrastructure, road, railways, electricity, where again you need public sector in a country like India. You don't need them everywhere, but in a country like India you need them because they have the expertise to develop it. Again, the focus has to be on quality and cost cutting. कि आप कॉस्ट को कम करके कैसे प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हैं, प्लानिंग कैसे अच्छी कर सकते हैं. पटना, कानपुर, लखनऊ, इन सिटीज को मेट्रो की जरूरत नहीं है. भोपाल फॉर दैट मैटर, अब लोग बुरा मान जाते हैं. अभी मैं पटना में था कुछ महीने पहले, एक आधा महीने पहले, मैंने कह दिया था कि मेट्रो की जगह सड़कें ठीक हो तो बेहतर है. कुछ लोग बुरा मान गए, आप लोग चाहते हैं दिल्ली में ही मेट्रो हो. पटना का टोटल रेडियस आज भी, और वो लखनऊ पे भी ट्रू है, भोपाल पे भी ट्रू है, कानपुर पे भी ट्रू है, द टोटल रेडियस इज नॉट मोर देन 70 किलोमीटर्स, 55 किलोमीटर्स इवन टुडे. मेट्रो इज नॉट नीडेड फॉर अ मीडियम साइज सिटी. कुछ लोग कहते हैं फ्यूचर में बढ़ेगा. अब वो फ्यूचर आने देते हैं, अभी जरूरत नहीं है. अभी किस चीज की ज्यादा जरूरत है कि जो सड़कें हैं वो तो ठीक बनी रहे. आई सॉ एब्सेंट रोड्स, ऑलमोस्ट एब्सेंट. अब जा रहे हैं, चलते चलते रोड गायब हो गई. आप अचानक पगडंडी पे आ गए, अब आपके ऊपर है, आप आराम से जा सकते हैं झूला वूला झूलते हुए, फिर आगे बढ़ जाइए. सो देयर वाज एब्सेंस ऑफ रोड्स इमीडिएटली विद इन द सिटी की बात कर रहा हूँ. हाईवेज आर वेल बिल्ट, नो डाउट. जो मेरा गांव पहुंचने में पहले 12 घंटे लगते थे, अब 5 घंटे में पहुंच जाता हूँ. तो हाईवेज तो बहुत तगड़े बने हुए हैं, लेकिन मैं सड़क की बात कर रहा हूँ. शहर के अंदर आपको बच्चे को सुलाने के लिए एफर्ट ही नहीं करना, उसको लेके गोदी में ऐसे बैठ जाओ, सड़क ऐसे ऐसे हिलाएगी, वो झूला झूलते झूलते सो जाएगा. You know, so that kind of road we have made, it doesn't help. The point is that, so we need good roads for good communication rather than fancy projects like a metro to please people. Look, you have a metro. ये बीमारी हमें रोकनी पड़ेगी. कुछ जगह पे बीमारी है, मॉल खुल रहा है मेरे एरिया में भी, फिर वो मॉल खाली रहता है. वो डेटिंग स्पॉट है, जिनको लोनलीनेस चाहिए वो उस मॉल में चले जाते हैं. वो पूरा खाली है, उसमें बहुत से बहुत एक मैकडॉनल्ड्स खुल जाएगा या शराब की 1-2 दुकानें. क्योंकि ये सब ऐसी दुकानें हैं जिनको वास्तु की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. You open a shop of liquor, you don't need any vastu. You are in any direction, you do anything, people still come and buy. So ये दुकानें खुल जाती हैं उन malls में. Nothing else apart from that. तो ये तो wastage of public resource हो गया. That big land, you have developed the whole mall, or you're creating a big metro, and then that metro remains incomplete for years, creating dust pollution, creating excessive cost thing. So what I am suggesting is, if government can take its role seriously, public sector that is, then infrastructure development, core area development, this should be done better. And the non-core areas, for example, running an airline, or making scooters, or making motor pumps, or making ball bearings, these things can be left to private sector now. Public sector is not needed here. Understand that. All right, so that is the point we'll gradually develop. और अगर public sector है यहाँ, जैसे होटल चला रहे हैं 5 स्टार या मोटर पंप चला रहे हैं, कंपनी बेच रहे हैं, तो इम्पेरेटिव होना चाहिए कि बहुत हाई रेट ऑफ रिटर्न अर्न कर रहे हो, 15% rate of return profit, 20% rate of return profit, which then is exemplary, then you prevail. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, because then you are justifying the money invested in you. But that doesn't happen in India. So non-core areas the public sector should exit, and the core areas they should stay. That has to be the bottom line of it. That is where disinvestment and or / privatization becomes important. All right. So I'm just making you write the two things at the moment. You take it down. You write the policy of autonomy. The policy of autonomy has two benefits. One, you guys are having double classes or a single session? अच्छा, ठीक. You right? जानता हूँ. मुझे पता कैसे बात है, 11 बजे से उठ जा बुड्ढे अब. बस मैं अभी रुक जाता हूँ, अब बस ये कंप्लीट कर लो and I'll leave you. You write one. It encourages competition. It encourages competition and incentivizes public sector. Encourages competition and incentivizes public sector to become efficient. And then two, it encourages investment. It encourages investment in public sector. In public sector by assuring that they are given higher benefits by increasing their investment, or make it on increasing their investment. They're given higher benefits on increasing their investment. All right, we'll keep it till there today. We'll begin with disinvestment as I see you next. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ministry will decide the final category, Rakshit, based on their judgment call. Jyoti and Gitika, I hope you got your answer. Okay, people online, I see you then. 7:45 is whenever I'll see you. It takes me by 7:45. Thank you.